continue our special meeting. We move from downstairs to upstairs, and then we will sit down and listen to the budget presentation from the town manager. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council, residents here and at home. Welcome to our proposed fiscal year 2025 budget presentation. And this is how we've done it. At the very last slide, we'll give you what remains of the process going forward. But this is the opportunity for me to present to you our budget in combination with the Board of Ed and the programs that we will be supporting and the CIP projects that we hope to accomplish in the next year. Obviously, then it's a handoff to you, and then we'll get into budget deliberations with the council to look into it more closely at your leisure over about 4 different nights starting this week and next week and the following leading up to the public hearing on April 29th. So I like to say, knowing where we've been helps determine where we're going. A budget is kind of a blueprint. It's just more than numbers that we balance. I mean, unlike the federal government where they can propose and be in deficit and spending, we can't. We have to balance it, so we have to bring in enough revenue to pay for what we're going to pay out. And that's exactly what we are required to do, and we've done it. But I still like to look at some of the projects over the last year just to let the folks at home know what investments the council has made and what we're looking forward to in the future to help with the grand list. And if we expand the grand list in regard to commercial, industrial properties, it lessens the burden on our homeowners and the residences. So that's our goal ultimately. So, John, the old cow's tail, it wouldn't be right if John wasn't here, because I have to say next slide, and John has to help do it. John, are you ready, Maestro?
Sure.
Next slide, please. All right, and as I just indicated, this would be just a few of the projects and progress that you as a council made in the last year or two. So in the upper left-hand corner is Higgins Park, and anybody who came in here tonight and visits can see the improvements that you authorized just a couple of short months ago already being implemented, which are going to help us with some of the other slides. The upper right, you can see what we already have, the playscape and basketball, which are, as you came in this evening, now that spring is here, being heavily used by our residents. The bottom right, the Anfield Summer Concert Series. We have a full roster, 13 different evenings, 3 different jazz on Sundays in conjunction with our farmers market in June, July, and August. And they are currently going to be hooking up the electrical so that we will not have to have a loud generator this summer. So we're looking forward to that. And again, you can just see the band shell in the bottom center, which is beautiful, and to the left, part of the onset of the construction, which is ongoing as we speak. Next, John. Also, I think it's important to note the council's commitment to Powder Hollow. We did make some adjustments, but I think it's good. The council came together and worked collaboratively for improvements there, which we've been looking for the last couple of years. And on the right, the high school drainage, we did come forward with a program and a package that was much, much less than the millions of dollars we thought it would cost to fix the drainage, and that's going to be implemented as we speak. And also tonight, I'm happy to report, as part of that presentation, SLR had done a field study. They've made their report out to the Public Works Subcommittee, who referred it back to the full council. We'll be hearing from them as special guests tonight, and we'll be awaiting next steps that the council wants to take in regard to all of our sports usage and facilities in town. Next, John. Just a couple of, or 3. As we know, Raising Cane, been one of the additions of some good restaurants in town. On the right, Ray Stedward, our Chief Building Inspector, says that he's approved the preliminary plans, and LL Bean is on track to open in the fall. And I'm happy about our collaborative relationship with Capital Workforce Partners. I transitioned from when Bob was mayor to when Ken was mayor. We've already had them in giving the program of manufacturing at Isnuntuck. That's also going to work into, we're hoping to partner with them in September for a job fair in conjunction with a business breakfast, which we did a couple years ago. We had hundreds of Enfield businesses come, and the governor was the keynote speaker. I have that on the planning books right now. We hope to do that in the same day, bring all the businesses in the morning, and then have the job fair with some of those same businesses in the afternoon. Next. And again, the train station, as I reported, we bumped into the Commissioner of Transportation Mr. Eucalito a couple of weeks ago. I asked about the progress. They had sent us then, and I disseminated to the council, the schedule, the deadlines, and the benchmarks for the train station down in Thompsonville. We're on track. All of the deadlines are being met. They hope to have final approvals in the fall and then commence construction at the beginning of 25. So that's very exciting. Next, John. This is just sort of an overview of the station. Pulls back a little. We're going to have the intermodal transport with buses. And the reason I mention this, I can't talk too much about it, but if you look across the top of the screen, you can see the generator plant that Eversource property has. We've worked for a number of years with Eversource to look at the remediation, to see about acquiring that. We used to have the casket building. That's the empty space there. But we have a lot of flexibility for parking. As you can see on this side of it with Main Street, one of the principal reasons DOT and the state were so interested with our site. But I can just tell you, we've met with the Levitts and some potential developers on that greenway across on the river. Very exciting plans. They have signed a purchase and sale agreement with local Connecticut developers. Can't say much more, but I think it's going to be, again, a real boon to Thompsonville and to Enfield. And again, their interest was, are you going to have magic carpet? Are you going to have other transportation to the square? To other businesses in town, and we are. And a couple of weeks ago, we received, it was the $500,000 micro transit grant, which the governor came for East Windsor and Enfield, and that's going to be part of this too. So all of these pieces of the puzzle are coming together, and it can be frustrating because it can take years, but we're really at a crossroads where a lot of it is really starting to happen, and it's going to really put Enfield, when I put the star on the top and say we're the gateway to Connecticut, everyone will know it pretty soon. Next. And that's the final slide in regard to redevelopment. We are still in talks, and I reported this evening on parts of it, and we're continuing to focus very, very laser-like on the square redevelopment and their proposal, and you're going to hear a lot more about that in the coming weeks. John? As you know, fund balance. We need to know, what do we have in the kitty? What's our rainy day fund? By our rules, we have to have 9% of the operating budget, which equates to we should have $15 million on hand at all times for any emergencies or contingencies. In Enfield, due to the stewardship of this council and their fiscal responsibility over the years, that projected fund balance at the end of '24 will be $25 million. And even though we have commitment to it for CIP and whatnot, that usually does come back to us, and it could hit and peak again at about $30 million. But we know with John is always very circumspect and conservative in his valuations, but we will have $25 million at the end of fiscal '24. Next. All right, well, this is now getting into the nitty-gritty. And what this slide shows us in the bottom, I'll start at the bottom, is what the town budget will be this year proposed by me, $155,763,604. So how do we get there? So this is the revenues and the revenue sources that will pay for it. So property taxes are the lion's share, 61%, or $95 million. Motor vehicle taxes, we're familiar with, $22 million. Intergovernmental revenues, that's state and federal, but mostly ECS and those type of grants, the amount of $33 million. Charges for services, these are charges such as out of the town clerk's office, recording fees and the like, in the amount of about $1.5 million. Then from our investment rental income and other incomes, which are smaller, about $1.8 million. Fines and forfeitures, a smaller amount, but that's through blight and other areas where we collect. $9,000. Licenses and permits primarily come from the building department in the amount of $1.2 million, and that gives us the 100% total for this year's town side budget of $155,763,604. And simply the pie chart on the right, since we started off with that with the departments a couple of months ago, you can see how that breaks down. Next. All right, this is basically the state revenues and what I alluded to before, intergovernmental. If you look at pilot, that's for money we receive in lieu of taxes for the prison and for the Department of Motor Vehicles in town. It's $1.3 million. We used to have a formula that gave us something for Nuntuck, but that's been reworked by the state, so it's currently zero. The LoSiP is for our 2021 roads program, and that's the amount of $308,000 plus this year. Now, the next couple, town aid road grant and grants for municipal projects, one at about $500,000, one at $250,000. That basically is money we receive in from the state for road repair maintenance, snow removal, signage, and things like that. And then we get our share of the Mashon, Tuckett, Pequot, and Mohegan grant of $1.2 million. And then the ECS, the education cost sharing, about 29. So that's the total in from state for this year's budget, which we anticipated about $33.5 million. Next. All right, and this is the breakdown across the board. So what we did is we wanted to make it simple. We put what last year was and what this year is. So Board of Ed last year was 75.9, just about 76 million. Proposed this year 82 million. So the value change and increase, and on the right, I hate to jump around, but it's $6.5 million increase or 8.6%. And we knew that, and I've talked to the superintendent about it. You drop down to the next. The town's proposed 2025 budget is 78.2 million approximately. Last year was 77, almost 5. So the value change is under $1 million on the town side of 827,549, or my proposed budget is an increase of just about 1%. Now, what we wanted to show was the next line, because this was something that we obviously didn't create, but we have agreed to fund, which is the School Security Officer Program, and that's $1 million. And the percent change is 100% because we're going to fund it completely. So when you add together the bottom left, the proposed budget combined for the Board of Ed and the town is 161 million. Value change is 8.4 million increase, or when you blend the two, 5.4% increase over last year. Now, I've been asked, and this slide comes from a form that we, through finance, provide to the Board of Education every year, which they then provide to the state, which determines various, the grants and monies that we receive. So it lists every department, and I needn't go through it. You can see we do IT with the crossing guards. Last year, the police department, that was for our roving patrol for the elementary schools. And also school security, not including the new SSO program. And then HR does amount, family. You can see the different amounts that we do. And this has been within the range. John checked the last couple of years. This was for 23. Looks to be in line. And then down the bottom, you can see the debt service for JFK and Enfield High School of 3.2 million. So the total is 15,382,000. And that will be reflected in the total division between town and board in a later slide, but I think it's transparent for us to note that in addition to the direct requests from the board, these are also in-kind services that we provide in addition thereto. Next, John. So we look at the mill rate. I went back to 22 to show what it was at 34. Then you see this looks like a precipitous drop in 23 in the mill rate, and that's because that's when revaluation occurred. Then you can see it went up over the next 2 years. Last year, the mill rate was 29.21. This year, the proposed mill rate will be 32.23, which is an overall increase of 1.6%, and that is for the combined taxes we need to generate for the Board of Ed and the town for our total budget. And how it works for folks at home. The mill rate, that's 32.23 for every $1,000 of taxable income on your home. We look at your home's value, and we then take 70% of it, not the full 100%, multiply it by the mill rate to get what your average cost would be to a homeowner. So we've always used a home of a value of $200,000. So the property taxes based upon this new mill rate would be about $4,500. Of course, if you have a $400,000 house, it would be double that. Next slide. I think people like to know where their tax dollars go. Again, this is based on if you have a $200,000 household paying that $4,500 in taxes. We break it down just in descending order. And as I alluded to before, if you take the general fund plus the in-kind services for Enfield Public Schools, $2,700 of your taxes goes to that support, and it is 61% of our total budget once you allow for the in-kind. And then it goes to Public Works, Public Safety, transfers, debt service, pensions and benefits of employees at 3%, general government, which is wages at 3%, capital, which we're going to talk about our capital projects, and then some miscellaneous other for the total of $4,500. Water pollution control. Water pollution control is always a dicey subject because a few years back, based upon our consultant's recommendation and requirements of DEP when we were going to refurbish at a cost of about $40 million, the Water Pollution Control Center was told us that we had to break away and divide water pollution control from the town budget. So in so doing, if you looked at that other chart earlier, which said police, fire, all of those breakdowns, water pollution control was contained therein. But now we've broken it out, and now people get a separate bill for it. So whereas before the increases probably were about the same, people didn't look at that bill and say, oh my goodness, look what I'm paying for water pollution control. And we're going to have a discussion, not for tonight, but rest assured, before we adopt the rate, there's been a request in the past to do away with the quarterly base charge, and base it purely on volumetric. And therefore, someone goes away in the winter or doesn't use much water, they don't pay as much. And I'll address that at the right time. But we'll look at those numbers. Short of that, in FY 2024, the cost of running water pollution control was $9.5 million. This year it's $9.9, and I'll tell you what those drivers were, but that's about a $351,000 increase. How do we pay for it? All right. The budget for water pollution control is about, as I said in the previous page, $9.9 million. There are certain offsets and monies that we receive, like collection, late charges, hookups. So the amount of money we need to collect this year in this budget for water pollution control is $8.6 million. And how we pay for that is two ways. One is the quarterly charge, which is remaining unchanged this year. It's $39 a quarter. That will generate 53% of the money we need, of that $8.6 million. The balance of it will be raised in volumetric usage charges. So you can see the two rates on the below that. The top line, and you can see we're going from $3.60 a gallon to $4.61, and that's for usage under 20,000 gallons. Below that, if you use over 20,000 gallons, it goes from $5.39 last year to $6.90 this year. Those volumetric charges account for 47% of the money we need to raise. So base rate generates $2.7 million in the budget. Volumetric raises $5.9 currently. How do we determine these rates? We'll talk about it when we go to talk about the rates in a couple weeks and set it, but we pretty much follow the methodology that was recommended to us by our consultants, Woodard and Kern, when they proposed this change and dividing out from the regular budget. Now, it's always the volumetric. It goes up and people see it. Some years we didn't raise it, so some years we're behind. But these are the actual numbers, and we can address it when we go to set the rate. Next page, Sean. All right, so these are drivers in the budget, and we talked about some of them in February. And these are the increases that we have seen since last year. Employee benefits and health insurance primarily being the largest in 14% is $1.1 million increase. Contractual union increases to employees 1.1. The new school security officer program, $1 million. Electricity costs have increased, as we said, by $361,000. And we're going to give a demonstration or proposal, I should say, Donald, in the near future. We actually are using less electricity. We've been good. We've reduced the amount we use, but as you all know, like at home, it's the delivery charges and other charges added onto the bill that continue to skyrocket. So even though, we're modifying our conduct and reducing our use, the cost still is increasing. We list the disposal, $92,000, and that was a contract we waived the other day. There's one tonight on for the MDC in regard to these fees, but this is the increase in disposal costs for household waste, trash, bulky waste, and recyclables. And as you all know, we used to get paid a pretty dime for our recyclables, and now we pay an exorbitant amount to get rid of them. And maybe, I hope that switches again in the future. So the total increase is 10.207. And how are we paying for those increases? Because that number has to be the same. As I said, we have to balance the budget. So increase in investment income, we're fortunate. I guess as much as the bane of our current situation nationally is inflation's going up, well, so are interest rates. So we're going to see about approximately $800,000 in increased revenue. And it could be higher, but John's very conservative. Our education cost sharing grant has increased by $960,000. Use of fund balance has increased by $1 million. And I did that for the SSO program. because hopefully with our grand list next year and other things coming online, we'll have more time to offset it. But this year, we were very frugal. We only increased the town side budget under $1 million, but with this unanticipated cost of $1 million, and in talking to John, that's what the fund balance is for. Unforeseen, or this isn't quite an emergency, but it's a public safety priority, so I've recommended that usage. And you still see at the end of it all, we have a $25 million balance in the fund balance after we do this. The tax increases that we discussed previously would be $6.6 million, other, which are some smaller revenue increases of $800. So we balance that increased costs of $10 million, but revenue to account for it in about the same amount of $10 million. Next. All right, capital improvement project. Capital improvement programs, and you have a sheet in front of you which the Board of Ed provided for me today, in regard to modernization and upgrades of schools. I'm not saying anything we don't know. It's about $103 million. How we address it, there are different scenarios. We're not going to talk about it tonight. On the town side, we have about $120 million in capital improvements over the next 10 years for all of our buildings and our properties, sewers and pump stations. It's staggering, but we have to start to address it. We're going to be having a meeting with the Board of Ed this Wednesday night to discuss this budget, and hopeful from that meeting we can start to talk about these other issues of the long-term modernization and upgrades of the schools and the town, because we're in this together, folks. So I'll go through it briefly. It's astounding to me if you look at police cruisers, $750,000 for 10. When I used to sit here and we used to propose police cruisers, they were around $24,000. So in the interest over the years of showing the true cost of a cruiser, we used to then separately do the radio and the cage and the lights and the MDT. Well, it's all together now, but because they keep on changing the body style on these vehicles, we can't use the cage, it doesn't fit. We can't use the light rack, it doesn't fit. There's no market to sell them. So that's the cost, the true value of putting one cruiser on the road, $75,000 times 10. The ambulance, $425,000. You can approve it, we'll sign it, we'll order it. It's going to take 3 years to get it, okay? They had asked for 2. I have another plan. We had money left over from the Macholik Post. God bless those men and women. If we can find a used ambulance this year, we could then perhaps budget a small amount and get one online. We just got one back that has a new chassis, and we just sent one out for a new chassis. So we are trying to keep abreast of the needs of the EMS. The others are kind of mundane. There's nothing real super sweet or sexy in these CIPs. We've got, for safety reasons, to replace at Alcorn and Rotary, the rubber playground pads. Look at that cost, $450,000 just for the pads. When we say miscellaneous sport field upgrades, those are the same for a few of these categories. It's a fund we have every year, and that's for projects, repairs, and parts. What's new, Shaker Pines Field. We've been approached by Mr. Russo and his group, and we know we just had gone down to the legislature, I'll touch upon this later, asking the state to convey us some land across from the Lego complex, about 14 acres that would accommodate 4 fields and parking. But we have to take care of what we already have. And the existing fields, they need additional parking. There's drainage issues. We've had SLR go out and give us some proposals, but this $100,000 will allow us to increase the parking for them and also do some minor upgrades and improvements. We've been doing them around town, so I think this is the appropriate place in the budget to address that situation. We do sidewalk replacements around town. That's town-wide. It's a small amount. We could spend, Mr. Noon says, 10 times that amount. Professional engineering services, this is the on-call contractors, architects, engineers, environmental. When you all have a proposal, what would it be, Chris, to convert next door and use it for one-stop shop? Well, we take that amount of money out. What about this at Nathan Hale, Chris, or an environmental emergency where we need somebody to give us a design or an impact? We take the money from there. Gymnasium resurfacing, we're putting in for one school a year, $40,000. Miscellaneous school facilities, that's money they use for repairs, such as the boiler door that just came up. So we have some money to address these unexpected contingencies. Mandatory HVAC, that's a new state mandate that we have to do. It's $85,000. Crandall rear sidewalk, they've been trying to repair that with lipstick and bubble gum and it's a risk, it's a safety issue, and I take that seriously, so we're going to replace it for $75,000. Again, miscellaneous town facilities, those are repairs and projects and parts for town hall and other town buildings. Boiler water treatment, that's a treatment we do before water goes into the boilers to try to extend their life expectancy. Rooftop electrical, imagine $50,000, but at the annex, we have these troughs up on the roof that are completely degenerated, so the wires are exposed to the elements in the rain. So we have no choice. This is part of that $120 million I told you about, and we're doing it in piecemeal, but we have to do it sometimes just to avoid a huge catastrophic cost if those wires were to spark, cause a fire, or go out. We have a lot of different programs in the annex now. Next, John. Kimberly Drive drainage, 255. Freshwater Pond, I can't believe it. I was just sitting here when we did that 5 years ago. State mandate, got to dredge it again. Roads 21, and that's from LoSiP, some of it. This is a balance we talked about earlier for the roads projects. Storm sewer pipe relining. Instead of replacing, we reline. It's less expensive, and it's been working, so this is another tranche of money to continue with that program. Fuel master system hardware. What we need to do, we're going to be getting a new tank out at the Public Works. So to upgrade the software when people come in for the mechanics, and there's another cost down below, replace automated information modules for 12. That's to go on the actual gas cap so it can read it when you come in. We know who's getting fuel and how much. So that's that program. Again, a dangerous walkway at the Central Library that's been going on for years. They've been trying to just fix it. We're going to now address it and replace it. And the rest are self-explanatory. A gym divider at the annex, basketball court backboards at the annex. These next three are all from EMS. Look at folks. I'd love to say, and we're lobbying, I'm putting in another bond request for the public safety complex. We're just waiting on a letter or two, and we'll resubmit it. Did have an opportunity to talk to the governor about it and lobby it. We'll see what happens. But we can't, we've waited, and to our point, pay as you go or go to referendum. We can't wait years for something that might happen, because what we've done is not put in the money to maintain what we have in the interim, and then it's far more expensive. So they absolutely have to have shore power. This keeps the ambulances. It's a connection to keep them in the winter months warm so we can go on calls. A backup generator if they lose power. We have to keep those folks working. Bay door replacement and repairs of $60,000. The doors, you know, when you go on an emergency call that's life and death and you hit the over door opener, you want the door to open. So we got to do that. The rest, scrubbers and battery and chargers, that's more stuff in the weeds. Donald told me the details, but those are necessary. Let me just tell you the, I forget what the scrubbers are for. It's part of, for cleaning equipment at the schools. 7 blowers need to be replaced out of 14. When I was here last time, I did 7, so I guess we're continuing with that replacement program so they can keep the walks safe during storms. I told you about the modules. This is the last section of crack seal programming that we're going to be doing on the roads that we needed to do for $61,000, and we're replacing a salt spreader. So the total for the CIP is $3.9 million. Next. Now, likewise, we pay now separately, and we break out what the CIP will be for water pollution control. Water pollution control, these are the lists. West Shore Drive lift station for $798. General pump stations money John puts in. Sometimes we're short with what we've been doing as pay as we go because prices have been going up and inflating, so this can pay the difference. Simon Road immediate pump work, $156. Collection system in advance of road work. And we would go in and try to do the repairs so we don't then go rip them up after we pave. And the major sewer line replacement reserve fund, we know about that. Both of these two funds of 700 and 700 were depleted with Meadowlark, spent about $1.4 million, so we've got to replenish it now for these purposes. Next. So this is the timeline. Here we are as we sit April 15th. We have those 4 budget review sessions set starting Wednesday, then the following Monday, Wednesday, ending on the date of the public hearing of April 29th, which is a Monday evening here at Town Hall. We also will be able to deliberate if there are some leftover questions by the council. We'll then do the CIP. Well, the CIP, One year I nearly forgot that, so I said, put it up so I don't. We have to propose the CIP request to Planning and Zoning to be in accordance with the charter. Then we adopt the budget by May 20th, and it becomes effective on the 24th. A couple of things that I would like to share with you, and I sent to council today. In addition to the proposals on the school modernization plan and upgrades, I sent you, we have been very good lately about scouring the state and the federal government for any grant availability. So Donald delineated one from, it's called the CDC, Congressional Direct Grants, and I sent it to you today. So I know at our February meeting, we told you we have about 30 million or so, 40 million for sewer lines and all of the pump stations. So the deadline was Sunday. We got the applications in. This will be before and for the consideration of Senator Murphy and Senator Blumenthal for $41 million. Again, it could be a year and a half. We don't know how much we're going to get. So we're still going to be addressing, pump stations and sewer lines as best we can without an overarching referendum to address it or some other way. So we've done that. Hopefully we'll talk with the Board of Ed. There's some good scenarios about improving the schools and the money and the resources needed for that. And I think the future is bright. We have a strong and healthy fund balance. I think we're doing a lot, not only to invest in the infrastructure and in the town, but also for recreation and athletics, being responsible to seniors and to the young people, helping education. And I'm proud to work here as your town manager and come back and do this budget. I think it's been very challenging times, but this council is well equipped and well experienced, and I think in a great position to look at this, to work with the Board of Ed as we move forward in the next phases and come up with a fair budget for the town and for everybody that lives in it. And with that, I conclude. Thank you. And we'll hand these out now for the demonstration I just did, and we'll put it online tomorrow. And again, we're not for questions now. We'll save those to Wednesday in the deliberations, but I know it'll be a lot of food for thought. And thank you for your attention. They're because, we work right up to the final. Becky and John's office, I told her we needed them for Wednesday because that's our first deliberation. She said, next Wednesday. I said, no, the day after tomorrow. So she's working. It won't be the formal, full bound, but we will have what's necessary. I think, and I didn't want to tell her, I apologize, Becca, because I knew later this afternoon that we weren't going to present Wednesday, so we didn't really have to have it then. But I figured keep the pressure on, and she'd be inspired to get it ready. We'll really need it for the following Monday, but I'll get it to you by the end of the week, so you have it over the weekend before the deliberation.
Prior years, going back, 2-3 years?
John can address what the comparisons are.
We will have the regular budget page. Won't have the salary detail pages in them, but they will contain 2 years of actual, the current year actual and revised, adopted and revised budgets, and then the department and the proposed.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Perfect timing,
You're a little late.
Well, that's you asked questions. That was the time.
That was my fault.
Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn our special meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All in favor? It's unanimous. And now I'd like to call the regular meeting of April 15, 2024 to order. And may we all rise for a prayer by Councilman Santinella.
God, you taught us to act justly, to do what is fair to others. You've sent your Son to provide peace and to help us create a bond of true fellowship. Open our eyes to the needs of others, of all different types of people in this world. Lead us out of our comfort zone so we can bless and build bonds with people who are different from us. Lead us in respectful service towards one another, treating each other as brothers and sisters. May we be instruments of your hands to create a just and peaceful world. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do you have the time? It's not in there.
And roll call, please.
Counselor Santinella?
Here.
Counselor Ungary?
Here.
Counselor Sakala?
Here.
Counselor Crisati?
Here.
Counselor Finger?
Here.
Counselor Hendrickson?
Here.
Counselor Ludwig?
Here.
Counselor Mangini?
Here.
Counselor Nasuda?
Here.
Mayor Nelson?
Here.
And Deputy Mayor Pisner?
Here.
11 members are present, none are absent.
Okay, in the event of a fire and emergency, there are two means of exits out of the council chambers. Exit out the rear doors and walk a safe distance away from the building, or exit through the side doors, go down one flight of stairs, out the doors, and a safe distance. Minutes of the preceding meeting, special meeting of April 1st, 2024.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any comments, corrections, or concerns? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? It's unanimous. And the regular meeting of April 1st, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any comments, corrections, or concerns? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? It's unanimous. Thank you. And then we have, for a special guest tonight, we have John Hammer from SLR for a field demand analyst report. Welcome, gentlemen.
As the council will remember, in all of our discussions between Powder Hollow and the high school, we and the council thought it'd be wise to do an inventory and to do a demand analysis of the field, so we can be advised now moving forward and making important decisions for all of the sports teams and recreation teams in the town. John?
Thanks, Chris. I'm here with my colleague, Mark Aragoni, who's you've seen before at our previous presentations, so it's good to be back. We've been working diligently with the scholastic department, the schools, with the school, and with recreation groups, mostly to collect data on usage. And we worked with Donald to get some information on all the places where athletics are played in town. So there's a lot of data, and tonight we're here to give you what the goal of the study was, which I kind of went over, how we did it, which should be very brief, what we found, and some recommendations. So to start off, the purpose of this study really was to simply find out if you had enough fields for the amount of athletic demand that you had in the town, which leads back to my original point of talking to Corey and athletics and the recreation groups. So I personally met with all the recreation groups of all the clubs and leagues, and then I met with Corey. So how we did it could be a whole 2-hour episode in itself, but in short, essentially, we look at the data from Corey and the data from the groups, and the data is their usage, how many practices they have, how many hours. I won't go through the list of all the criteria, but we look at all of their usage, and from that, we develop a demand. So with Corey's data on how much usage they have, freshman, JV, varsity, and we look at the recreation groups and what they're doing over there, we have 2 sets of data. We kept them separate for the most part, although the recommendations will recommend some blending of things and sharing, but ultimately there's 2 columns of data that we looked at for the study. So we then, after establishing the demand from the 2 different columns of data, we looked at all the facilities, and we treated the facilities in a similar way. They're not really strict rules, but typically you have what Corey's doing, the athletic director, with the schools, and then we have the recreation groups are using other facilities. Sometimes there's some overlap depending on availability and things. I understand that the synthetic turf fields can be rented, so there is some sharing. There's some sharing at Brainerd there's some sharing at Powder Hollow for baseball, but essentially, we looked at all the fields. So we had the demand side, and then we had the supply side. Supply side's all the facilities. So ultimately, we were looking to compare that demand to the supply and come back here and say, you have either enough fields or you don't, and some recommendations on how to move forward. So looking at the scholastic side, which would be Corey's group for JV, varsity, freshman, middle school, and if you look at the data for baseball and softball, what's interesting is when you combined the Enfield High School, the Annex, JFK, Brainerd, and Powder Hollow, you have more ball diamonds than you actually need for Corey to conduct his work or his activities. So just for conversational purposes, there's some opportunities there to either share with the recreation side, or there's opportunities to create rectangle fields because they're really short on rectangle fields. Rectangle fields being essentially lacrosse and soccer. Lacrosse in one season and soccer in the other season. And the other interesting major takeaway is that on a premise where you would try to move everything or host everything at the high school, there's not enough square footage of land at the high school, even if the whole thing was synthetic turf, just generally speaking. You can't run enough of the events concurrently or simultaneously in the daylight hours in order to have all of the high school sports happening at the high school. So it's really important as we go through tonight to just remember there's not enough land there, physical land. You would need the land next door, not that I'm suggesting that, but just to give you an idea of the scope of size that you need. And it's not uncommon. This happens in a lot of towns. You're not the only ones, so don't feel like, this is atypical. It is very common for other towns to have to go to other places to have events. The other real positive takeaway is that with Brainerd and Powder Hollow, you essentially have you will have equal facilities for, say, varsity, for them to have dedicated facilities. So I'm going to pull up a map of the Enfield High School. And what you're looking at here is the fall season, which would be the beginning of the school year. So in the context of what I presented already, where you have an excess of ball diamonds town-wide for school athletics, it would be possible to formalize the use of Brainerd and the use of Powder Hollow as varsity facilities. And speaking to Corey, it made a lot of sense for the varsity to go there because the busing would be less onerous to do that. Seniors have vehicles, and as Corey was saying, it's just easier to get the seniors over there than it is to get like freshmen or JV over to there. Plus, obviously, they'd be dedicated facilities, and then the freshmen and the JV could share the two remaining ball diamonds here. So what we're showing here is the two ball diamonds on the right. There's currently 4, but the 2 ball diamonds on the right would stay, 1 softball and 1 baseball, and then you would gain 3 rectangle fields on the left-hand side during fall sports. So the interesting thing is that in this scenario, because it's the fall, obviously there's no baseball or softball, and the overlays wouldn't be on the clay infield. But in the spring, you'll see in another slide that this really helps out lacrosse in the spring in another way. So what we have here is the 2 ball diamonds next to the track get removed, and then you add 3 full-size fields: a football field, which is FB1, a boys soccer field, which is a full 360 by 195. Currently, they are only 300 feet at the high schools, and you would gain another 360 by 195. So while there are 2 soccer fields here, they're abutting each other. There's not a 30-foot safety zone between the 2 fields, so it's kind of risky to play those at the same time. So not only do you gain the fields here, but you also gain the 30-foot of safety space in between the fields. We also are able to maximize this field here Currently, this field is kind of short. It gets truncated down. With the addition of a full football field, you could use this as a boys soccer freshman practice field. So Corey had requested, if possible, for us to consider putting a sidewalk down here. And then we would also suggest ball safety netting so that different sports aren't hitting into each other, so you don't get, and that's not an expensive addition to add the ball safety netting. But looking at the same facility in the fall, or the spring, sorry. So in the spring, what happens here is with the track and field events, it's difficult and not particularly safe to have lacrosse and the track and field and all the events going on simultaneously on the track. So they tend to move the lacrosse off of the field, and they end up in this little field up here. With this proposal, you would be able to play it says varsity on here, but it should be freshman. After talking to Corey, this got changed, but it would be freshman in JV softball and freshman in JV baseball. To the left of that, we would end up with those two 360 by 195 fields again, full dedicated lacrosse fields, which you currently don't have. And you would also get two spare fields. So now instead of using this little field up here, you would end up with that as a spare and the one down here as a spare. As far as the JFK and the annex go, the annex, we strongly recommend the synthetic turf and the track to get replaced. Everybody, including the recreation, relies on that synthetic turf at the annex. Without the synthetic turf there, it's going to put a lot more pressure, and it is currently putting a lot of pressure on your natural grass fields. So you have all the infrastructure there. It's a carpet and infill and sort of a resurfacing project. So the town would benefit tremendously from replacing that carpet over there. So that's kind of the summary. I'm sure you'll be asking lots of questions about it, but ultimately the takeaway is replace the carpet and the track over at the annex, and at the high school, solidify varsity offsite and convert those two ball diamonds to rectangle fields. There is an email that was provided to me from Corey with strong support for this, if that helps you with any level of confidence. But Corey thought that that would really help keep a lot more of the sports on site and solve a lack of rectangle fields at the high school. So looking at the recreation side of this, there's no slide really to look at for this. I'm just going to come back to the summary. So again, the annex replacing the synthetic turf would be a big plus for recreation as well, because you'd have two fields that you could rent out, or however you want to handle that. But essentially, you'd have two synthetic turf fields, alleviating pressure from one or the other and alleviating pressures on the natural grass side, especially during soccer season. So that's the first recommendation. Reconstructing Shaker Fields. At Shaker Fields, you actually run uphill both ways. I know they've been playing that way forever, but the design of the field has it such that when you run from the goal mouse up to the center line, there's been a lot of patchwork. I know that DPW has done what they can to keep those fields in good condition, playable condition. There's drainage problems out there, as has been made aware earlier. Those fields, we looked at whether or not slit drainage could be done out there, which is what we're doing at the high school to solve a drainage problem. But it would have been, in our opinion, a poor investment there, because essentially you're fixing fields that need reconstruction anyways. So just a recommendation. We thought that you should consider sharing or continue to share diamonds. The Little League ball diamonds, the Little League really relies on, and I can never say this right, as Nuntuck. They rely on as Nuntuck, which is on the, no, that's Brainerd. Where is it? So most of the Little League is happening at the college. We'll just go that way. So because it's leased land, and this actually happened to them, they put solar panels and additional parking out there. You don't really get a vote on that. And if they take it down or they decide not to lease it, the Little League is going to be out 4 ball diamonds, which is a significant thing. So that would just be something to consider for in the future. You're relying on somebody else to, host their events. So as far as the availability goes for softball and baseball, under all the current conditions, you would be short a 70-foot diamond and a 90-foot diamond without sharing at Brainerd and Powder Hollow. So if you don't share the fields at Brainerd and Powder Hollow, you're short a 70-foot diamond and a 90-foot diamond. If you share fields, then you're okay. Soccer, I don't even need notes for this. On soccer, there's enough fields for the small size 7v7s, the youth, the younger kids, but especially with Shaker and the conditions it's in, even with Shaker reconstructed, they would really benefit. We recommend another full-size soccer field at a minimum. There isn't a full-size 225-foot wide soccer field in the entire town, to our knowledge. There's not one striped that way. So for recreation, that's actually more important than the high school. High school typically plays on the synthetic turf field, which you've seen, and because of the track, they're narrow to like 195, but that's a common. Every school with synthetic turf does that. We know because we do a lot of them. But the point is that for recreation, though, and outside of scholastic sports, a 225 field is highly desirable, possibly rentable. So building a large full-size soccer field, preferably like a complex, 1 or 2 of them at least, would be a big benefit. What happens is when you don't have enough fields and you're running right at the max, the minimum amount, any weather, any inclement weather, any scenario will either cause them to play on the field and ruin it, or they cancel, you can't rotate. So having the fields to do that is important, especially with the annex synthetic turf the way that it is. It's not like you can just put them over there. So the short takeaway on that is technically you have enough, but you should build at least one more. So finally, some recommendations associated with that. I guess if I say the annex synthetic turf once more, I'll become repetitive, but sharing those fields on the weekends, there's not as much, Corey doesn't have as much events on the weekends. So when they run these big events on the weekend, you could really help the DPW out by allowing those big events to happen on the synthetic turf instead of on the natural grass field. This way they can conduct their regular practices during the week and then host the big events, because the big events do a lot of damage in a real hurry. So sharing the synthetic turf fields, both of them, if possible. We already talked about relying on the College for Little League and Powder Hollow. So that's a lot of words to basically say that you're close to having what you need, but improving some of the stuff you already have, which I went over. Reconfiguration at the high school to get the rectangular sports, lacrosse and soccer. Right now, soccer, Corey has like JV, freshman, and varsity like all playing on the field, one field sometimes. Removing the conflict between lacrosse and track would be a benefit by doing that as well. So if you have any questions, I'd be more than glad to do my best to answer them.
Sure. Well, thank you. Councilman Mangini.
Thank you. Thank you for coming forward again. I'm in the subcommittee, so you've seen a lot of your data. However, I do have a couple questions. And I think I have asked this question before. What data did you use? What comparisons? I know Longmeadow comes into the picture, and the cost analysis. Part B of my question, I've been asking for the PowerPoint this PowerPoint and the synopsis that you have, I haven't received it yet, and I think every member of this council should have that information as well. I mean, it's good, to see the visual, but, and I only speak for myself, but I'm sure other council members would like to have the stats that you have and the recommendations.
Sure. So the two letters are actually, we issued two letters to DPW for Donald, and both of those letters should be able to get passed on to you. So I'm actually scrolling through them right here. These are the letters that we sent. Okay.
Synopsis of how you got to where you did through your analysis. We have the letter from Corey, but there's more. There's more to this. And I think every member of the council would benefit if we're going to be, researching or making any decision. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, but I asked to have it printed off.
Yeah,
We want to have it printed off.
we sent this out to the whole council last week in an email. And we can print it as well for those who need
Have
it.
that? Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure you had it
so
before this meeting.
I would like to get a copy from somebody. But in addition to that, can we get an answer on, besides Long Meadow, what other communities did you look at? Because you must have used comparisons.
No, it's a wholly independent study. The only comparison that I had been making to Long Meadow is that they have a similar breakdown of teams. So it was just an interesting tangent more than it is irrelevant. The study that gets done is town-specific, municipality-specific. So we don't reference, it's not dependent or in relationship to any other town. It is strictly based on your data and what the uses are for you. So there wouldn't be any to give to you, I guess is the short.
And did you come up with a cost analysis on the project?
No, we weren't really, it would be a pretty extensive exercise to go through the cost, depending, because there's so many scenarios and variables for it. We were really tasked with trying to identify whether or not you had what you needed and some recommendations on how to move forward. And there's a lot of variations on that, so we could do that, but we haven't been tasked with that for this.
Okay,
this
thank
time.
you.
Yep.
Councilman Sakala.
Thank you. So I've had a chance to go through the email paperwork that we have. I'm gonna want to go through it maybe once or twice more, but I do have a couple of questions. I'm going to paraphrase. We're close to having enough. We do need a couple of more, maybe different fields. Are you taking into account the necessity to rest fields in order to make sure we have enough long-term? Or did that not factor in your analysis?
So there's national industry-wide recommendations and parameters for field use. Synthetic turf, as you know, is pretty much if you have the 11 p.m. or whatever, you can run it as long as you want. It's unlimited for 8 years. The natural grass side of it, NC State is one source of these recommendations, but there's many, and it does vary, but I take that into account in all of these studies. And the recommended maximum use age is about 20 hours a week. So when that table that's on the screen behind you is an example of some of the data and the field recommendations, it's also in the handout that you have that was given to you. Mm-hmm. There's three columns there. The top big number is the number you need for the size. The next one is the number of hours per field that gets used. So you can see that the computation doesn't allow the field to get used for basically more than 20 hours. So it's tough to see it from here. I guess I could zoom in, but maybe. I probably don't need to.
Okay. So I guess.
Anyways, yes is the short answer.
Yes. All right. Thank you. I think I still have some concerns on us in general having enough fields if we do need to rest those fields. But that's from my own experience in the last 17 years being involved in all of the different sports around. So I have some concerns about sharing fields. I think it's a great idea to put more rectangular fields at Enfield High. I feel like I said we're not going to have enough room there for all the sports that we need. I've said that for a long time. I think putting some more rectangular fields there makes sense. I'm a little worried about if you move varsity softball to Brainerd Park, what field did you have them sharing? The brand new one?
There's 3 of them over there, so in order for it to be equitable, there would have to be, I don't know how many are lit. I haven't personally been over there at night to check it all
All
out,
3.
but I think all 3 are lit.
Yep.
So it would be the one with the largest outfield that the varsity would get, because you want it to be equitable to the baseball diamond at Powder Hollow. So it's not only is it, as you know, a function of, but I don't know which one specifically it would be. I'd have to go over there. But probably the brand new one.
The brand new one, right. So the brand new one is not the biggest one.
Okay.
So the brand new one is the one that's closest to the road, and that's fenced in with the black fencing, and that has the lights. That's the new one. So that one was built 2-3 years ago because we tore down the only lit softball diamond here for girls softball, for women's softball. And my worry is that you're not going to have enough time and hours in the day to put varsity softball there. They're going to end their game somewhere between 5:30, 6, 6:15, maybe even 6:30. Girls softball starts there at 5:30. So my worry is you're not going to have enough field space for varsity to be over there. I think it's great. I think they should have a really awesome field like that. My worry is there's going to be some overlap. I don't know that I buy into that there's enough fields to share scholastically and recreationally for that softball field. And so I may have the same types of concerns I think having varsity at Powder Hollow solves that problem, but they do, as you know, I think you alluded to it, they share with Legion, they share with the juniors for recreation, and they kind of work that out. But that Brainerd Park was, for all intents and purposes, built for the recreation department or the recreational softball league, and they use that 6 days, if not 7 a week. So I worry that putting varsity high school softball over there is I don't know that there's gonna be enough time there. So those are my concerns. It's just one question. So the amount of the data that you received, was this all based on self-reporting? Like, did you pull rosters and things like that, or was this self-reporting from the organizations that you met with?
They provided rosters. And the data, we didn't check every single roster, obviously, for every single player for all that. But again, to the Longmeadow reference, you look at the amount of teams and the amount of players and what they're asking for. We felt like they were asking for what they were using was fair. And we also had usage data from the town themselves. So it made sense. The data made sense.
It jived, it made sense, perfect.
Regarding the field usage for the softball, the part that has the excess amount really is when you combine all of those places. So JFK, the annex has 4 fields. The high school currently has 4 fields. JFK has 2 new fields. And then you get Brainerd with their 3 plus Powder Hollow with another one. So it's not based on, I didn't do it based on opinion. It was, they gave us what they needed. I put in the amount of fields that there are. And the 20-hour cap is usually the most restrictive part of it. You can easily get over 20 hours just by playing 5 days in a week. So, and it's just the data, I guess. It's kind of boring, but.
Mr. Mayor, I don't want Mr. Young to get us in trouble on the 15 minutes.
I didn't want to interrupt
Oh,
him. It's
sorry.
already
Okay.
coming.
My
I'll
bad.
entertain a motion to suspend the rules to extend these special guests for another 15 minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Abstention? Okay, there you go. You're all set. Oh, yeah.
So I think
we're good.
Gina still has the floor.
Yep,
Yep.
Gina has the
So
floor.
I
Sorry.
appreciate this. I think this is long overdue. I think it's a step in the right direction. This makes me happy that we're finally looking at this. I still think that I think there's still a little work that we need to do. I appreciate everything that you've done, and I'm going to have to look through this a couple of more times, and I may have a lot of more questions.
And Mr. Mayor, this was just for a special guest to give the update. I know the subcommittee would like to do some meetings, and this would be obviously merit not a special guest spot, but a special meeting, because we shouldn't give it short shrift. There's a lot to this. I think it's great information. I think we can really move forward in an informed way. So this is just to get some of the questions out there, see what Public Works wants to do next, and then we'll put it back on in May or June, whatever you say, for an hour and a half, so everybody will have the ability to ask whatever questions they need to.
Okay. Councilman Crissati.
Yeah, John, thanks for your presentation. I think all of your recommendations are something that we're going to be taking a look at. I do like the recommendation that was just brought up to say that the next DPW meeting, that could be a special type meeting where if we have more of these specific questions and people want to look through your presentation a little more, that we get together and be able to talk a little more about this, and then also maybe invite some of the leagues in to take a look at this proposal that you're proposing here tonight. And I think it's pretty important to see that, I do agree with you with moving the varsity fields to Brainerd and Powder Hollow for those for baseball and softball. But you have to look at, time constraints that Gina brought up. But overall, your design that you have at Enfield High School and positioning those fields, and then you're also talking about, downtime on the fields. Well, the way that you have the fields positioned there, after X amount of hours or after a season, did you give any consideration of being able to rotate the fields so that different areas of the field are utilized? That's just something that I don't know if you thought about. I'm sure that you did in terms of that. But I like the idea with the annex, with the synthetic turf and the track needing to be done. Have you looked at, in terms of the annex, being able to put in a full field over at where the baseball field is? They used to have a field hockey field right there that you have there, okay? So I'm glad that you put that in there, because that's a perfect spot right there. So I do agree with all of your explanations, and, thanks for everything. And once again, I'll take a look at this, but if we bring this in front of the DPW again, to get more specific questions, that'd be great. And even I think that's at JFK. I was talking about the annex.
Yes. That's the annex.
Yep, that'd be perfect right there.
I'm used to calling it Fermi, sorry.
Yeah, well,
I call it.
yeah, I still call it Fermi too, so we're all good, all right? Yeah. Spent a lot of years and hours on that field there, so thank you. That's it.
All set. Deputy Mayor Pisner.
So I too appreciate all the time you put in here, but I'm not going to lie, I'm disappointed because it takes our varsity sports and puts them somewhere else. And I've said from day one, and I stand by that I think our players need to play at their school. I'm not an advocate of letting our seniors drive. There's a lot of seniors that don't have their license yet. I have a lot of my friends whose kids don't even want to drive, or they don't have a car. And you can't ride share because you're not supposed to have another kid in the car. So I'm not an advocate of that. So that is my disappointment on this, that I want to keep our kids playing at their school. But I do appreciate the time.
Thank you. Councilman Finger.
Thank you, Mayor. So, talking about the overuse of fields and having to share everything, something that really I don't think your study came forward to, which I don't think you're probably asked to do, is the safety for the players. If you've got 10 games going on at one field between a high school and the other recreational teams coming in, first baseball or whatever the case may be, what's going to happen with that field? These kids dig holes, at the pitcher's mound, they dig them at the plate. So my question would be probably more for the DPW subcommittee, would be we need to look into getting fields done between games, maybe a little bit more. How? That's determination by Donald Nunes or somebody else, but safety should be the key thing, because you are really talking about overloading these fields. And not you in general, that's just the whole idea. It's not you saying that they are, but they are being over abused. They are being not treated well, and it's a shame that you have kids and parents would pay all this money to have the kids come down to the fields after a third game. The field's a mess. And I'm going to say it. I spent 23 years as a union president in this town. They say it's the union's fault that they can't do it. It's part of their contract, bargaining work. So something needs to be worked out. I think we should work on that to where they have the access to be able to maintain their fields if we can't, because it'll cost a lot of money for overtime. But I'm just more worried about the kids' safety. Thank you.
And this is the perfect time to address that because the contract's up. So,
I'm just giving my honest opinion.
yep, and I appreciate that.
It would be
Yeah.
so beneficial for us to be able
Councilman Hendrickson.
All right, I want to say thank you for the study. I did go through it, and there's a lot to it there. I do have a bunch of questions, but I'm not going to go through it now. I'm also disappointed that we're moving the varsity baseball and softball out of there. I'm leaning, well, we're not,
Right,
but the
let's
proposed
be clear.
plan is, and it seemed like Corey was a big influence on that. I'm not an expert. You guys are the experts, so I'm going to lean on you. I know Gina and Bob are happy over there, but we'll take a look at it anyway. But I do appreciate the work, and it was great to see it, long overdue. Not happy? You seem very happy over there. Yeah, no, it was overdue, and I'm glad it got done, so we'll move forward from there. Thank you.
Councilman Ludwig.
Yeah, and again, real quick, on behalf of the DPW subcommittee, we agree we want to have a public forum with the leagues. There's also the facility use that this is not this, but it's part of it. There's issues with some folks want to use our facilities. It's great that our facilities need to be used. It's great. But we got to charge for it. I mean, let's put it out there. We tried to, then we gave exceptions for years, as we've talked about a little bit in the subcommittee. I think you're kind of taken back that we actually do rent out the synthetic field, but no one wants to pay for it. So, so part of this is like, when we get to the charges, one of the reasons why we charged more back in the day for the synthetic, because it costs so much to replace it. I would rather see grass at Fermi. I don't want another synthetic. That's me, but just me speaking, but that'll be another day. But the point is, though, the interesting thing of this analysis, it costs, I think, and maybe you don't know the exact number, but the replacement of the grass fields is as costly as, 10 years down the road when we got to replace the synthetic field, which is one of the reasons why we charged more at the time to use Enfield High or Fermi, because we didn't want to have to replace it every X amount of years. Yeah, I think we only got 8 years out of, I'm sorry if I remember, 9 years out of 12. So again, I think originally we were sold around 20 years. It didn't get that long. Maybe I'm wrong. I can't remember, but my point is that's some of the thought process of what we're doing here. But we want the leagues to give us their opinion. There's a plan. You guys did a lot of work on it. And the point is, good news is we're not maybe as bad off as we thought we were, but we still have some work to do. So, I think that's, I don't want to summarize, but that's sort of what we came through the subcommittee meeting. And again, we have to get a plan together where we're both facilities and fields. The exceptions got to go away. It's got to be one charge. We sent the analysis out, I think, a couple months ago, how we charge versus what other towns charge. We're still very generous. And I know people don't want it, but that's part of this process as well, is that I think we'd like to do ultimately is have a fund where, again, if we are charging, it goes into a certain fund. We report on it twice a year. The leagues, everyone who knows exactly how much we collect. Here's how much we spend on our buildings and our sports leagues. So it's a little more transparent that way. And I know that's kind of coming out of this, and I think this is really well done, whether I agree with everything or not. I know you spent a ton of time talking to the leagues too, and I think that's important because you did talk to a lot of the leagues. So you didn't just do this on the side and, you actually went out and talked to them, which I think is important, which is what we like to do too, and say, okay, we talked to you about a couple of months ago, but here is what it looks like. Get their feedback as we move forward. So thank you.
Okay, so all I'm going to say is I'm not a sports guy. So I'm going to look to the people who are, Bob and Gina. I've listened to them. The DPW subcommittee, I think, has huge input, but I would like, before we make any final decisions, I appreciate DPW bringing in the different leagues and stuff like that, but I'd like to have maybe a public hearing with all those leagues and the parents to have a chance and come voice their concerns to me directly, meaning the council, so everybody has input. I think that would be huge, and let the leagues know they're being heard. Also, I'm not sure if you're aware that the town manager is working with Department of Corrections to expand the Shaker Fields to the other side, which would double the size of it. And Enfield Soccer has been working with us, and they want to use their own funds to expand parking lots and stuff like that, or maybe help offset the cost of the new fields across the street. So I think this is along with what Councilman Ludwig is saying, that, if we all partner together, I think we can get a lot farther. But to keep putting this on the taxpayers, $1.5 million for a new synthetic field that nobody pays to play on, it's unheard of. So I look forward to the communication, and like I said, I would like a public hearing with all the leagues invited before we make any permanent decisions. And I agree, it kind of sounds like the schools might have got a little skewed and shifted over, and it's taking from rec. But I don't know that much about it. But Gina, I do listen to you, and the minute I hear Brainerd Park, you talked about girls softball, I'm in my head right now as we're getting a phone call from men's softball before we leave this meeting tonight.
I don't think that's the field he was talking about them sharing.
Right.
The men's softball field.
Right. So anyways, great job, and I'm sure we'll be talking again, and I think that's it. And we're 30 seconds over, George. You're good. All right.
Thank you, appreciate it. Thank you.
Definitely. Yeah. Okay, moving on. We're going to roll into public communication. Any person wishing to address the council shall first be recognized by the chair and shall state their name and address for the record. They shall limit their remarks to 5 minutes. Limit their remarks to 5 minutes. After each person who desires has had the chance to speak, those desiring to speak a second time will be permitted to do so and shall limit their remarks to 3 minutes. During public communications item number 7 on the agenda, public members shall limit their remarks to 2 rounds, 8 minutes. During public communication item 16 on the agenda, if prior to 11 p.m., each person shall limit their remarks to 3 minutes. Public communication shall be limited to 1 hour unless extended by a majority vote of the council. All remarks shall be addressed to the council as a whole and not to any individual member. All remarks addressed to the administration of the town shall be addressed to the town manager and not to an individual employee. Public members shall observe proper decorum and good conduct and shall refrain from personalities and improper language. Who would like to come up? Zach, come on up.
Thank you, Zach Zanoni, 6 Howard Street, Enfield, Connecticut. First and foremost, I want to thank the town manager for a comprehensive review of the budget. I look forward to looking at that over the coming weeks and having some prepared remarks for the 29th. There's nothing I love more than having an indefinite amount of time to speak about the town's finances, which you get the privilege of during a public hearing. I know Mr. Young is looking forward to that, too. So I wanted to talk about the supports for our farmers, which 2 weeks ago I was deeply appreciative that we had a conversation about how we can support our farmers through tax incentives. When House Bill 5361 came through and I wrote testimony, I forwarded that testimony to you. And within that I stated, I'm deeply happy that we are taking measures necessary to protect and preserve open space through the solar farms, but that's in tandem with addressing the antecedent to that, which is what compels farmers to develop land in the first place. And that oftentimes is whether their properties can be economically viable or not. And the ordinances that were proposed, I believe one was a tax abatement and there was 2 exemptions related to machinery and building. Those are the supports I was referring to, and I'm deeply proud to see that the council is considering those. I think it's essential that we do that, and I would really ideally love to see all 3 implemented and all 3 be allowed to be applied to each farmer. I think it's my personal viewpoint, if we can afford tax abatements for corporations and assessment frees for sports complex, we can afford to support our farmers in each and every way to protect and preserve open space. I did hear some concerns and some rumblings that some people were hesitant to support certain types of agriculture, whether it be tobacco, I heard hemp, and I want the council to take a moment of pause to consider the intention of these ordinances, which is to protect and preserve open space and agriculture in the town of Enfield. I think tobacco, that is the bedrock of the town. It is. It's on our town seal. And I don't want this to become a moral litmus test about what should or shouldn't be grown in the town of Enfield. You know, PETA could come in and give their opinion on livestock. Environmentalists have their opinion on pesticides. People, in reference to drugs, have their opinion on marijuana in agriculture. This is not the forum for that. This is what can we do to support our farmers in the town of Enfield as much as possible so that they don't have to develop their land, so that my generation, 50, 60 years down the road, can enjoy the same Enfield that many of you grew up in. And taking every opportunity possible to support every farmer in the town is what we should do, and I think we need to be aggressive with that. And I support that fully, and I hope that you not only consider implementing all 3, but allow farmers to use all 3 of the ordinances that were proposed. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Zach. George?
George Young, 8 Holly Lane. Good evening. Kudos to the North Central Chamber of Commerce for the vendor show about a weekend ago. It was populated by many vendors, both inside and outside the Enfield Square. With so many visitors, it was like the days of old at the Enfield Square. I would also like to thank Arla Credit Union at 231 Hazard Avenue for sponsoring the Shred Day last Saturday. It was greatly appreciated. It was good to see the PAR report showing roads 2021, Year 4, Enfield North, which had Holly Lane and Ridge Road on it, and that the design work has begun. It was an interesting start when they were boring holes in front of my house and struck the gas line. Within a short period of time, many utility companies were on hand to resolve the problem. After checking our basements for gas leaks, the all clear was given. I thought it was probably karma taking place for my so many requests for town roads. There are a few resolutions that are going to be discussed tonight, which I have some comments and questions to ask. They are items 13F, G, and H regarding the Armed School Safety Officer Program, which needs some answers through the mayor to the town manager, and I hope the chief will address tonight, or the deputy chief I see is here. The resolution to reinstate a second captain position as the School Safety Officer Program Supervisor has been requested. It is the total cost for this position of $178,543 included in the preliminary budget on the 3/4/24 council meeting. I don't think that cost was included in there. At the 3/18 council meeting, there was a job description for an armed school security officer supervisor who would report to the chief of police. Why wasn't there a mention that this person would cost so much, as we were led to believe it would cost as determined by the town council, as indicated in the job description by the Code 1 in the salary block and for mileage reimbursement? It is now a new full-time position in the police department where fringe benefits are costing 28.3% of the total cost and 39.3% of the $128,083 salary for fiscal '25. I do not believe that the town needs to reinstate a captain's position in the budget and could accomplish the mission with a seasoned sergeant who has supervisory experience to supervise a part-time workforce. In addition, I believe the description should be either as a safety officer or security officer throughout all areas for consistency. I believe the description should be the original March 2024 job description of armed school security officer supervisor does not match the present request for the school safety officer program supervisor position. Does the resolution to purchase 28 Glock pistols include one for the new supervisor of the armed security officers? Who does each part-time armed security officer, or why does each part-time security officer need a new Glock pistol? Why can't Officer B, who replaces Officer A, receive his weapon also? Perhaps there are other things that could also be exchanged. The last resolution in this group is 13H, which wants funding for equipment for the Enfield School Safety Officer Program. They are asking for $139,562 for equipment and $54,541 for uniforms, for a total of $194,103. If this is all approved, then I hope that the regular full-time police force receives the newest equipment, and their equipment is transferred to the part-time school safety officers. I'm not getting into which years these items are charged to, because that is still coming from the taxpayer, so it really doesn't matter. These three resolutions have a total cost of $396,056, which, by the way, is the approximate cost to redo Holly Lane. This leads me to ask the council and the town manager to provide a report of what we spent when the safety officers were in the Board of Education budget, and what the new anticipated cost will be for the school armed security officer program that will be in the town budget. I know tonight you showed part of the $1 million, but this was written before that, but I don't think that 396 is in there, so maybe we could do a comparison study. Thank you.
Thank you, George. No, ma'am in the back. Yep. You. No.
Now it's working. Okay. Christina Lang, 90 South Road. I'm speaking for myself and also for Showing Up for Racial Justice, Surge, Enfield chapter. One question before I start my 5, and that is, are we allowed any additional comments? I think we are, after items, the resolutions F, G, and H are dealt with. Because I can separate what I'm talking about right now into 2 separate things. One is more about SROs, one is not. So should I devote my time to the not SRO stuff and deal with that later, because there will be opportunity? I just need a yes or no. I don't want to
The only opportunity you have to speak is right now.
Okay.
Or at the end of the meeting if it's before 11 o'clock.
Understood. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Very good. Okay. Well, today on Facebook, on the Enfield Community Forum, was posted this information. I'm going to paraphrase it. In collaboration with other Surge members, we've uncovered some pretty bad data regarding high arrest rates and potential racial biases in disciplinary actions at Enfield schools. While we continue to explore various data points, and that includes the elevated levels of disciplinary actions against students with disabilities, we have 2 other issues that I want to mention right now. Arrests in Enfield schools. During the 2022-23 school year, 42 students were arrested in Enfield schools. This source is, by the way, the EdSite state data. 20 at Enfield High, 22 at JFK Middle. This equates to about 1.6 arrests per week. Compared to 22 other cities and towns in the state with larger populations, Enfield ranks 2nd in arrests per 1,000 students. Another point, the racial and ethnic makeup of those arrests not known now, but a FOIA will get it. we should know. And allied with this arrests that look horrific are suspensions. In the Enfield School District, over 21% of the 332 black students were suspended during that 2022-23 school year, indicating that roughly 1 in 5 faced suspension. That's 2.6 times the rate of their white peers who also had a suspension rate. I forget what it is now. I think it was 8.5. I can't remember. The suspension rate for students with disabilities stood at 12.3%. Now, we know there's also a significant academic performance gap that exists between Black and Hispanic high school kids compared to white students. I won't go through some of the details, that's been posted. However, there's some strategic action items we need to take. First, this is why I'm telling you, I want to know if you're going to explain these numbers. We need to get the data on the race and ethnicity of arrested students. You can do that with a school admin and get details on what exactly happened. We have to look at the high suspension rates for black students and those with disabilities. That needs immediate action. There's potential racial and other biases going on, and disciplinary actions that might pertain with SROs should be discussed. You need an equity study. Finally, this might overlap with the SRO story. You're going to need some training and education. You need to have someone implement training, and I'm thinking of the police too, for school staff and police officers in implicit bias, cultural competency, and de-escalation techniques, not just Glocks, to mitigate the disproportionate impact on students of color and students with disabilities. That's sick. Finally, comprehensive equity study. You probably know what an equity study is. There are other towns doing it. Undertake a thorough equity study to examine disciplinary actions, arrest rates, academic outcomes, access to advanced courses, all of this related together. Identify this.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Danielle.
Danielle Gerard, Edgewood Drive. I'm here tonight to talk about yet another sloppy plan, and this time it may risk the lives of our children. The current plan you have in place for the armed guards seems to be lacking in quite a few things. One, budget. If you have a budget, great, let's see it. If not, what is the proposed budget? Saying you aren't going to put a price on our children's safety is not a budget. Equipment and uniforms. Why is the town ready to spend over $220,000 on new equipment when we don't even have the proposed SROs in place? Hiring a second captain. It's our understanding that the second captain will not only be used to manage the new SROs for the schools, but to also assist with the EPD in various ways. We think this is a great opportunity to utilize this position in many ways to make sure that all of Enfield is safe. Partnership with the schools and understanding school security will be critical in this process. Hiring process. Anyone that has worked in a company knows that this is not free when you go through the process of hiring a new employee. With that, there are many expenses, background checks, drug tests, training, and so forth. MOU. To our understanding, there is still no MOU for this job. Where is that, and why are we starting a hiring process without an MOU in place? Not only that, but we are also concerned about the protocols and the involvement with student behavior since we have yet to see an MOU. Big question here. Where is this money coming from? At your February 20th meeting, it was mentioned that this was cost neutral. The marker on that is 3 hours and 8 minutes, if anyone wants to take a look. From the items above, the information that was recently given, the town will be spending over $400,000, and that does not even include the hiring process or the final salaries for each guard. It was also mentioned that over half of the current school officers are eligible to apply. Have those people applied or were even offered this position before it was posted on the EPD page? Parkman School currently has had no guard for over a month because he was not eligible for the position and found a job elsewhere. This limbo is putting our current school security protocols in jeopardy. How many more guards will we lose before you all have a solid plan in place? Yes, we understand that this will not be at the expense of the school budget, but once again, it seems that we are going to take away from our children's education with a sloppy plan in place. We also realize that this process does not happen overnight, but it has now been 2 months since this was approved. How many effective meetings have you had with the joint security and possibly leadership to talk about this plan or even how this process will work? In all honesty, I am personally not for or against having armed guards in our school. What I am against is pink slips handed out to our teachers, having our teachers fearful of losing their jobs, wondering as a parent whether or not my children will get the full education that they deserve because the people on this town council cannot get themselves together like adults and make a better plan for the safety of our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. Angela Foss. Thank you.
Bless you.
COVID. Yeah, okay.
Good evening, Angela Foss, 16 Crescent Beach Drive. I just want to take a few moments to speak about our children. Please keep the education budget as it is. Make cuts elsewhere in the budget. Here are a few reasons why. The town side of the budget increase in the past 10 years has been 40.35%, while the school increase during the same time was only 16.85%. The average annual increase for the past 10 years on the town side has been 3.13%, while on the school end, it's only been 1.31%. I went back to 2019 to review the educational cost sharing in Enfield, and that's in the very front page. This was shocking to me because I knew that there were some issues last year, but this has been going back many, many years. To the tune of 2019 funding, we lost $8,934, not a big deal. 2020, education was cut $398,355. 2021, $801,878, and so on and so forth, for a total of $3,042,677 we have not received of the cost sharing part of the budget over the past 5 years. It's essential we put education first. To just catch up on the 10 years of increases, the education budget would need to increase by 23.5%. Here's a little backup information. When I was hired at Parkman in Enfield, there was a principal's name was Patricia McKiernan, and she saw something in me and had me attend 2 summers of the Gifted and Talented Education classes in Yukon, taught by the very prestigious Joseph Renzulli. The money was available to her, and she spent it wisely with forethought. I have a little information there about the Renzulli method. She opted for me to teach a daily Gifted and Talented lesson at Parkman in addition to my normal position. I'm a math consultant. This is a teaching position where we work with small groups of students to give them the extra attention with the goal of moving them to readiness in the classroom, if possible, in place of moving them into special education. It's also an annual amount of money that I used to have for supplies, between $5,000 and $10,000 to spend school-wide on math materials. That is something that we no longer have. On the CMT math test, Parkman made such amazing gains that we were in the 98th or 99th percentile in the annual test and far above the state average. We have to get back there, guys. Our children deserve it. Currently, our budgets are shut down early in every school year. The supply money is for essentials. We're very careful about using materials. The supply closet is locked, and we fill out a form for what we need, and the custodian drops off what we request. There's no walking through the closet to get what we need when we need it, like we used to. Here is an example of what we are doing now as teachers. This is what I was able to purchase. A game, a fun game for children. This is actually from Nathan Hale, with a fun board, and the children love games. This is how they learn math. But since I can't buy these games, we've been creative, and I spend hours, and I mean hours, copying, laminating, cutting, creating the same games that the children like, but they're nowhere near the same. They don't, if they could choose, it would be this board, not this, with all the little pieces that need to be cut. This is what we're doing as teachers. I don't know if you understand this. I know we're kind of living in a different world than you guys are when it comes to our budgets. We're doing all this by hand. Just so you know, children also need headphones. They need headphones for everything they do in math. They have an iPad. They don't have headphones. They can't purchase them. They can't bring them to school. They don't have the extra money at home. So instead, the school district provides them with these little earbuds. You and I can only imagine how they don't like the earbuds. Okay, time's up. Okay, but thank you for all that you do. I just wanted to let you know the reality of education. Yeah.
Thank you, Angela.
You're welcome.
Nikki.
That would have been nice then, I know.
Good evening, Nikki Price, 1324 Enfield Street. The neighborhood representatives, of which I'm a member, agreed to meet with attorney Carl Landolina and the Felician Sisters Incorporated representatives to discuss their proposed text amendment, PH number 3088ZA, to add elderly housing to the HR 33 zone for approval by the town, by the planning and zoning. The goal in my mind was to create a text amendment that would allow elderly housing in HR 33 zone, but also protect the historical authenticity of the neighborhood from becoming a high-density urban living area. Those talks ended in a mutual respected agreement by all. The text amendment voted was scheduled on April 3rd. At the time, I wasn't sure if I would address the commission or not. That all changed when I decided to read the agenda in the text amendment before attending the meeting. Staff added 2 spaces, 2-bedroom unit to the text amendment that was not part of the published version. Still being bothered as to what transpired from the previous night, I wrote an email to the town planner that I would like to read into the record. It was very surprising to learn at last night's special PZZ meeting that you, as staff, modified the applicant's requested text change by adding 2 bedrooms, 2 spaces to the text amendment PH number 3088ZA without notifications to either the applicant or neighborhood residents. Prior to the vote during the discussion, the applicant stated something to the effect that such text was not from him and could be removed. It was not. and you neglected to advise the commissioners that this change is required to be published in the newspaper to notify not only the neighborhood residents, but the town's citizenry as whole, because this change affects all HR 33 zones. I therefore question the validity of the last night's vote. I look forward to your reply. To the town planner's credit, I received a reply on April 5th. Unfortunately, it leaves me in a bit of a conundrum with this sentence in her response. The proposed the modification of parking requirement was in my staff report, which was in the master packet. It was discussed and agreed to on the record by both the applicant and commission. When was this agreement made? Was a good faith meetings between the applicant and neighbors a farce? Watching the last Thursday's PZ meeting only added further mystery to the text amendment addressed in the town planner's report. The town planner noted the town manager instructed her to address concerns brought to his attention to the PCZ Commission regarding the text amendment. She failed by not explicitly explaining those concerns, only providing 3 suggestions for the Commission's actions. This not only left the public in the dark, but also the PZC commissioners to question, why are we even talking about this? My wish in bringing this to the council's attention is that we can avoid these conflicts by having staff consistently allowing proper government procedures. Thank you for allowing me the time to express my thoughts. Now, I have a question for the town manager. Can I just ask him really quickly? I would like to know the things that she presented, the 3 scenarios. Am I allowed to get that information? That's the first thing. And the second thing is, can I just email the request, or do I need to send in an FOI? Send it to you, or send? I will. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. Anyone else? Karen, come on up.
We saved the best for last. Karen LaPlante.
Zach's coming up after you.
Yeah. That's the second time around, though. Karen LaPlante, 166 North Maple Street. And if anybody's been watching Inland Wetlands, I can tell you I am totally against replacing any field with artificial turf, especially for me because I live just down the street because of the chemicals and things. Anyway, that's a different subject, and we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. I'm here tonight as the chair of the Enfield Agricultural Commission, and the Ag Commission met with the General Governance Committee of the Town Council, Joan Nichols from the Connecticut Farm Bureau, and a group of farmers and interested parties on Wednesday, April 3rd, for a discussion on tax reduction opportunities for farmers. There was a good turnout, and Joan Nichols explained the optional ordinances the town could pass to reduce the taxes for the farmers. I would like to read the memo, or portions of the memo that I sent to the General Governance Committee, and it was based on discussions at that meeting and our subsequent commission meeting the following Tuesday. So this was addressed to the Town Council General Governance Committee, and we sent it via email last week. Dear Town Council Committee members, at the April 9th, 2024 Agricultural Commission meeting with the Agricultural Commission members, voted to recommend the following tax reduction opportunities be considered for approval to the qualified farmers in Enfield. We believe these additional tax reduction opportunities will support the existing farmers in our town and possibly encourage new farmers to settle in and begin new farming ventures in Enfield. It is important that we consider farming as a viable industry in Enfield and support this industry in any way we can. We are a town with soils of significant importance for farming and should not ignore the values of this valuable natural resource. These are the optional ordinances we recommend to be considered for the adoption. Enabling state statutes, CGS Chapter 203, Section 12-81M. It creates a municipal option to abate up to 50% of the property taxes of certain qualified agricultural businesses, dairy farm, fruit orchard, vegetable nursery, non-traditional or tobacco farms, etc. Enabling state statute CGS Chapter 203, Section 12-91C creates a municipal option for the exemption of farm buildings used exclusively for agricultural purposes or buildings used for housing for seasonal employees of the farmer. Up to $100,000 exemption can be offered per building. Enabling statute CGS Chapter 203, Section 1291B. Municipalities may provide an additional $100,000 exemption from personal property tax for farm machinery, horses, and ponies on top of the state-mandated $100,000 exemption to bring the total exemption to $200,000. As a commission, we have not evaluated the impacts of these ordinances will have on the municipality or the budget, as we do not have access to that data, but we believe the farmers will benefit from one or all of these tax reduction opportunities, and we appreciate if anybody has any questions, they can call us. Better probably call Joan Nichols. She's a little sharper on the deal, but I would also like to mention a couple conservation options we have for farmland in Connecticut. I have provided a chart on 4 different programs that are available in Connecticut. I'm going to give it to the town manager. The 4 programs are Connecticut Farmland Preservation Program, the Community Farms Preservation Program, the Open Space and Watershed Land Acquisition Program, and Agricultural Lands Easement Program. The Agricultural Commission was specifically formed to implement the Community Farms Preservation Program. We have not yet preserved a farm with this program due to the lack of funding. I also have some additional pages from the publication on conservation options for Connecticut farmland that answer a number of frequently asked questions on agricultural conservation easements. I'll leave these documents with the town manager, and I have the full PDF version of the booklet if anybody wants the whole booklet. And that's it. Thank you. Do I have extra minutes?
You timed
30 seconds? No, huh?
Had 9 seconds left.
You've been practicing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Janitis.
Peter Janitis, 3 Farmstead Circle. I don't know why I come to these meetings. I don't intend to talk, but I just can't help it now. It's nice to hear some people talking about the farmers. We really do have to be aware of what's going on with them. I mean, this was an agricultural community to start with, and we can't lose our agriculture. The 29 Glocks that Mr. Young spoke of, I don't understand why. I mean, these people who are going to be these armed security guards, I'm sure they have more than enough of their own weapons at home. And I don't know why we need 29 Glocks, why they all have to have the exact same weapons. As far as some of the other comments that were made, Bob Crissati taught school in this town for many, many years. I taught school in this town for 38 years. And I'll tell you right now, when those kids walk through the doors of the school in the morning, they weren't white, they weren't black, they weren't Hispanic. They were kids. That's all they were. They were kids. I know things have changed since we've gotten out of teaching. The demographics of this town have changed somewhat. And it has brought with it some interesting problems, to say the least. I think, personally, what I don't understand has happened in education is the liberal, woke educational philosophy that is being shoved down our throats by both the federal government and the state government. And I don't think we're helping ourselves here either by just buying into most of that stuff. It is a problem, I think. We didn't have these problems before. Things have changed. But boy, we got some big problems now, and I don't think we're doing a good job solving them. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Walter?
Don't turn off the microphone. Walter J. Cruzel, 21 Charlie Road, Enfield, Connecticut, USA. First, shout out to Councilor Hendrickson for bringing up my name at the last meeting. My ears were burning, not even watching the meeting. But it's nice to see that we are working on the railroad and getting those reports, because I took some pictures and I sent them to Councilman Hendrickson, and hopefully he can forward them to the rest of you. I built a shed at Peerless. I put in a footing, I put in a stud, I bolted the frame to those studs. Well, if you look at the bridge, it's the same way, but the stud is showing in the concrete. So if the stud is showing in the concrete, that doesn't mean the concrete is holding the stud, which is holding the frame, which is holding the bridge. And I'm no engineer, but you don't need to be an engineer. I took, like I said, the pictures I forwarded to Councilman Hendrickson shows that that bridge cannot hold a train. There's no ifs, and buts about it. And Mr. guy on the left here, who's going to get us all into electric cars, isn't going to replace a bridge for biofuel. So, no, in the picture left. Picture left.
Clarify that next time.
Yes, picture left. Sorry, picture left. Not the guy on the left, picture left. And the guy on the right, too, isn't either, but that's another story. But, so thank you for that. And then I have a closing to announce. This Sunday at 2 p.m. is the final Mass at St. Adalbert's Church. We are going from 5 Catholic churches to 4 Catholic churches after this Sunday. It's 109 years that the church has been in town. It's been in the Polish community in Thompsonville. And it's a shame, but it's inevitable, and I actually predicted it back in 2022, the last Christmas that was there, that I even said after Christmas, this will be the final Christmas, and sure enough, it was 2 months later that they closed it. So if anyone's available, we are having the final Mass, and all are welcome to see the beautiful church. The church is being sold, so there is another group that's buying the church. What they're going to do with it, I have no idea. But it is what it is, as a former chairman of mine used to always say, friend of mine, and we go on. But we go on to four churches left in Enfield. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. Thank you, and all have a good night.
Thank you, Walter. Anyone else for the first?
Happy Tax Day.
Anyone else for the first time? Second time? Okay, seeing none. Public communications is over. Now we'll move on to councilman communications. Councilman Mangini.
Just on a happy note, I want to congratulate the UConn men's basketball team, my alma mater. Congratulations, UConn. You played your heart out, and the results showed, and we're looking forward to another great season next year. Thank you.
Who's UConn? Councilman Sakala.
Thank you. Through the mayor to the town manager, I know I had asked, I think in leadership, if we could get an update on the MOU, what the status of that is, where we are, when are we going to get to see it, stuff like that. That'd be great. And I know I also talked to you about the school modernization committee. I know we got an email today, and you did give us this chart, so I appreciate that. But what I'm looking for is, where are we with that process? Is there a meeting? Has the Board of Ed and the town, is leadership starting to talk? What's happening? Because we need to make sure that the wheels are turning on that, and we're not just throwing it to the side and not talking about it. So if I could get an update on where we are with that, that would also be great. But I assume you've started that process because we did get an email about that today. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. First of all, Zach and Karen, once again, thank you for stating your comments in regard to the support of the farmers and the meeting that you had with Joan Nichols. I think that's very important for our community, so thank you for that. I just have two quick little announcements. First of all, the Enfield Athletic Hall of Fame is going to be having a benefit scavenger hunt in honor of beloved coach Ben Alex, a very close friend of mine. And this is going to be a family fun event is being planned where all the money that's going to be raised is going to be donated to a local nonprofit organization. And there's going to be teams. It's $50 to enter into this event. You're going to be finding different things throughout the town of Enfield, and they're going to have different areas that you're going to have to try to locate things, which is going to be kind of a fun event. And I know the reason why I'm stating it so that people can make plans, and it's going to be held Sunday, May 19th, and the starting point is at Jimmy's Pub at 10:30, which kind of should be kind of a fun day and a fun event. And all the proceeds are going to a nonprofit. So looking forward to that. And then on another note, this was from Lauren Jefferson, who is the Buzz Robotics advisor. Buzz Robotics qualified for the World Championships in Houston last week and at the New England District Championships. And a combination of a strong performance that led to us being ranked 6th, which is pretty impressive for Buzz Robotics. So congratulations to everyone that was involved with that. Sophie Carrier is one of only 5 students in New England who was chosen as a Dean's List finalist in recognition of her outstanding contributions and leadership to her team. And there's a long list of Enfield High students that were involved with that, but congratulations to the team and good luck in the World Championships in your qualification for that, because I think this was the first time that they actually qualified for the World Championship, not just United States, but this is the world. So it's kind of a neat, and I just wanted to let everybody know about that. So thank you. You're welcome.
Deputy Mayor Pisner.
So we have a few things happening. The first one is this weekend, this Saturday, we're having the Enfield Clean Sweep. So it starts at 10 o'clock at the Town Hall. If anybody would like to come down, I do it every year with my granddaughter. We have a lot of fun. Next weekend, the weekend of the 27th, there's 3 things happening. It's your Drug Take Back Day, which is happening here at the Town Hall from 10 to 2. And there's also the Enfield Public School Art Show, which I'm happy to say my granddaughter has a piece of art in. So that's happening on Friday and Saturday, and the Lamplighters is doing Mary Poppins the last weekend of the month. So there's a lot of good stuff going on, so we hope we see you at some of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Nasuda.
Thank you. First, I just want to also give a shout out and thank the chamber. I was at the home show both days, and it was great, and I thought they did a great job. A lot of people walking through the halls. That was great. And then the other thing I want to just last Saturday they had the hazardous waste collection day, and I just want to say a shout out for how organized and how well done it was. People moved through flawlessly. So I did have some other things, but I need to do a little more research on right now at this point. That's it.
Okay. Thank you, Jim. Councilman Finger.
Thank you, Mayor. So I got a few things here tonight, and not kidding this time. So I'm going to say a few things. One is Abbey Road. I had sent some emails out about Abbey Road, the construction of the missing curb. Well, I said missing, but it wasn't part of the plans. How it's washed out. It's supposed to be start getting done this week. I think it was week of April 15th. I don't know why we can't extend that curbing out, because it's just going to wash away again. It's going to look like crap again. It's going to get into the tracks. I know the guys worry about the tracks, but you got to do something, because I'm tired of seeing lollipop bales of hay going down Abbey Road. It's a brand new road. It shouldn't be that way after they do that. And I think an additional curbing, maybe curve it in, should help take care of that situation. From the town mayor to the town manager, can you look into Monroe Road for me, please, around 3329, that area there? There seems to be some call before you dig markings going on, and I haven't heard nothing about that at all. And if you can get back to me, that'd be great, so I can get back to them, please, if you can find out. And I'm not happy about Bush Lane, because the picture I sent you has the water running away from the catch basin. It comes down the hill of the road, and it swerves right away from the catch basin, which is supposed to catch the water. Why aren't we checking after these roads are being put in, or somebody should be watching that, making sure these things are pitched right, because that's just a wasted basin. There's no water getting into it. The pole is still on North Maple. I know Mr. Noon sent something out to the state, or Eversource, excuse me, and they got back to him. But can we please get a follow-up on that? It's still there. They're all broken, and now they're starting to proceed out, breaking out more. I have severe allergies, like Councilor Harris, so I apologize for sounding a little stuffy. Also, too, I want to mention that, yes, summer time is here, so I would like to make sure that everybody realizes that there are motorcycles on the road. We have to be careful of that. A lot of kids are biking, they're playing in the streets, they're playing their games, they're playing basketball again. Please be careful, watch your speed. And the most important thing is ice cream. We have 3 places in town, Collins, Smith's, and I think Trinity sells ice cream, I think, doesn't it?
You forgot about the new one down by Kranz Candy Castle, where it used to be.
Oh, that's right. My
Snell
apologies.
Groves.
What's it called?
Snell Groves.
Snowball? Dairy
Yeah,
Queen.
if you're
Oh,
going
and Dairy
to
Queen.
give a punch, you got to give it all.
Get all to it, right? No, thank you for helping me out. Mike's house, Ken's house, Marie's house, Counselor Santanella's house. He's got the best ice cream going around. But I do want to give it out to all those people that, let's
For Wednesday night, if my understanding, we're going to have the board or the superintendent with the presentation. Is it this Wednesday? Can we have, so we can just educate the public that we can't cut the education cost grant? If it wasn't what they said it was funded, John, please correct me if I'm wrong, that comes directly from the state, it comes through our budget, and it goes directly into the school account. Please, if you address that Wednesday, because I think there's some misinformation on how the ECS cost grant works. The town of Enfield has no say in how it works. It's a complete state. We're basically just a pass-through into the board budget. So we didn't cut it. There was an implication that we did. We did not. And by law, and again, John, from Wednesday night, I'm pretty sure by law we can't cut the school budget as is. We can cut their increase, but we can't cut their budget. So if we could have that, just so people are already getting some information that necessarily is as accurate as it could be. And on the same lines for Wednesday, if we could, through the mayor to the town manager, can we get the latest percentage of funding we get for special ed? It's supposed to be funded at 100%. My understanding, it's been funded roughly at 69%. And if we could have the schools talk to that, as again, when we're talking about funding and Enfield's growing in special education, which again, that's okay, but we're also not getting the funding we're supposed to be getting, and there's only so much a local taxpayer can pick up. So I think people need to understand the funding sources of our budget before people come and then just sit there and say that things are getting cut. but just understand the sources, where they come from, and what is happening, so we can have, again, a very robust budget discussion. I appreciate your budget tonight. And another, through the mayor to the town manager, to the director of public works, for the I hate the little NIP money that we get. I know it's a special fund that goes for sweeping the streets, excuse me. Is it possible we could hire temps to be able to have people go around and pick up can we use that money? Because those, if you walk an animal, you do any walking in town, they are all on the sides of the roads. And, and so if that's just an option, someone asked me if we could maybe use some of that money as well to hire someone, or maybe a couple, doesn't have to be college kids, just folks who like to walk and maybe can earn a little money and pick up nips when they're walking. Because they are, unfortunately, all over on the side of most roads, no matter where you walk. It's across town, so I'm not picking any section of town. So if that's through the mayor to the town manager, if we can get an answer, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to go. The farm credits, it was a great meeting. I want to thank Karen, Bob, and Mike for putting that on. I think you did a great job, and Joan Nichols is a wealth of knowledge. I think there was a lot of great information shared. Unfortunately, there was no cost shared. So we all love, tax breaks, but at what cost is this going to be? So we really need to investigate a little bit more on that. As far as the armed guards go, the joint security, which consists of Councilman Santinella, myself, and Councilman Ludwig on the town side, and then the Board of Ed side is Charlotte Riley, Tina LeBlanc, and I believe Scott, right? Phil Colbert. We're in attendance for all the meetings, so there are no other meetings, and I don't think anybody up here can say there has ever been another meeting that we weren't all present at. So for one side to say that they're uninformed when they're at the same exact meetings we're at, or for the residents to think that there's one side doing more than the other, or there's behind the scenes things going on, I assure you that's not happening. And as far as the equipment and stuff like that, I do agree we need an MOU in place. I will be supporting the purchase orders tonight so we can get it lined up to go, but I would put a stipulation on it that until we get the MOU back, we don't buy anything. Because who knows what's going to happen from now until we get the MOU back, and it's been quite a bit of time since it was sent to the attorneys for review, and I know, Chris, you've been pushing to find out where it is. I was hoping under your report tonight you'd say you have it, but I don't think that's going to happen. Nikki, with the P&Z, you did reach out to me. Again, that is something I'm going to leave up to the town manager. I want to stay out of that. Angela, the Board of Ed budget, you had mentioned that, we cut the budget every single year, along with what Councilman Ludwig said. Ever since I've been on the council, since 2005, the Board of Education has not seen $1 cut, not $1. Their numbers have gone up every single year. What's cut is their proposed budget. Each one of us go to our employers and ask for a raise. Doesn't mean we're going to get what we ask for, but we do end up with something. So just to be clear, the Board of Ed has not been cut 1 cent in the 20 years that I've been involved in doing this. Christine, you came up, you made some accusations. I think you're going to try to start something that doesn't need to be started. Kids are suspended because they do things wrong, not because of the color of their skin. So before we start accusing, the school system for being discriminatory, why don't we find out what the children were suspended for? Because I don't care if they're white, black, green, or orange. If they're threatening harm to another student in school, they deserve to be suspended. And that falls for special needs too. Unfortunately, special needs has gotten so out of control in this country. Any child that needed a spanking at 2 years old, when he's 16 and don't want to listen, he's special needs now. When he turns around and punches his teacher in the face, he's special needs. He needs to be arrested. We have discipline in our schools. We need to worry about the other children that are trying to learn. So when you get your statistics about what they were suspended for, we'll have a conversation. Let's put the color aside and let's see what they actually got suspended for, because I believe our school system is too lenient for the amount of trouble that's going on in our schools in Enfield. Peter Walter Farm Goods. And then, again, Danielle, she left, so I won't. But that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council, residents, guests. First, Gina had asked a couple of questions. So in regard to the MOU, you are correct, Mayor. We have been following up. Although it was a joint request and we waived the conflict, the attorney is the board attorney, Mr. Mills. So I don't have a relationship with him. I haven't dealt with him in the past. So we've relied on Mr. Drezick and Mr. Longy. As you know, the schools are on vacation today. I did have a call and spoke with Mr. Drezick. The assistant manager put a call into Mr. Longy to find out if they could expedite it. And I'll talk to the superintendent tomorrow. I don't like to criticize any lawyers, but being a recovering lawyer, I think I can. They should have had the MOU by now. We weren't asking them to write the Gettysburg Address or the Declaration of Independence. They were supposed to look at it and update it, not change anything substantively. So I hope we get it, and that's what they did, so that I can sign it, and Mr. Drezick, and we can move forward. And as a result of Gina's inquiries at leadership, I did reach out in regard to the school modernization and consolidation plan. That is why you have the, from Mr. John Day from the schools, his proposal about what the needs are and various ways we can get there. So I'm not going to comment. That's really a decision for the board and for the council to make. I think a good place to start is Wednesday's meeting for leadership to come together and start these discussions on this budget and what we need to do moving forward. We have to address the capital needs of the schools and the town. I did some interesting numbers, Mr. Sentinel, I'm going to share with you about pay-as-we-go versus going out to referendum, and I think they're quite telling. I won't take time up this evening, but I sort of had finance look and say, okay, if we have $100 million that we need to invest in the schools, and we have $120 million, but for argument's sake, $100 million for our capital over the next 10 years, how would we do it if we were to pay as we go? And it's interesting, the numbers, and just as I guess as just a little teaser, if we were to do that and start, and really it's a matter of commitment. This isn't rocket science. So under the charter, we're allowed to appropriate $838,000 per project. So if we look at the $100 million, say, for the schools, and we were to divide it and say, okay, for each school, regardless of what they need, we're going to appropriate that each year, and we'll start to put it in a fund. That's $6.7 million. On the town side, we could do the same. Say, okay, we're going to pick the same projects, the same 838, and we're going to come up with the same $6.7 million. All right. So we're talking about $13-14 million a year. So what would that mean? What it would mean, and we have a whole payback chart over 14 years, you would be able to fund the $100 million for each side. Of course, there's going to be inflation. Some projects will be more than others, and you'll pool the money together as we do and then spend it. But what that would mean if we did it pay as we go, one deficit in regard to schools is we don't get the reimbursement of the 70%. And building to new, we get a certain percentage too. So that we would have to bear the cost. But we could do some of it. It's like I said earlier, because the cost of doing nothing is killing us, all right? If we were to use the numbers I just spoke of, it would be a $4 million increase. All right, now you saw my budget is a 1.6 and what the cost would be. If you were to do it that way, it'd be 4.1 mils. So on our example of a $200,000 house that I gave previously, what would that be as an increase a year? If you were just to take those bald numbers over almost the 15 years. So what it would be, the 4.14 mil rate would equate into an additional taxes of $580 per home. So that's what it is. So if you wanted to address both these things and do nothing, and not them saying we can do it because it's a big tax increase, that's what it would be on a $200,000 house per average, $580, to fund $100 million and $100 million on each side over 14.9 years, doing the maximum amount allowed under the charter. So it's just a starting point for us to start thinking about that, because that's too much of an increase in 1 year. But you're going to be looking at the budget, and we're going to be talking to the Board of Ed Wednesday. You might say, you know what? Okay, we don't want to do the whole $100 million, Chris. We don't even want to do 8 projects, but we want to do 2 or 3, and let's start putting the money aside. And if we get some of the funding, or if we go to referendum and get the reimbursements, we can adjust it. But you have brought it up, and I think candidly, truthfully, we haven't funded the infrastructure and the maintenance over the years properly because it's terrifying and it's scary. Because you just saw me do the budget and what the increases are, 4.6% without, just for insurance and the cost of electricity, and then they say to our taxpayers, but also now we're going to add either 2 or 3 or 4 more mills. Maybe if we had started it years ago and done it incrementally, but I just wanted to give you kind of an overview. It isn't even for Wednesday night, and I'm just going to ask the idea born out of me talking to Mr. Drezek was he said, I think it'd be nice, because we used to do this when I was here, leadership should talk from the BOE and the town. Let's put aside rumors and gossip and innuendo. Let's sit in the same room. So they said, and they picked Wednesday. But I defer to you, Mr. Mayor, and Charlotte, to say, what's the agenda? Do they want to present? Do we want to present? Is it a dialogue? I look to you to tell me tomorrow because we've got to post it by 5 p.m. for Wednesday evening. But it's a great opportunity to start this discussion. We have 2 years almost, and we can make a lot of inroads. And we are applying for all the grant money we can, but I think we have those options and those tools available, and it's up to the council and the board to give us some direction and educate the public as to why we're doing it. I said it the other day in regard to fields. We're a great town. We can do anything. We can address all these things. We just have to be realistic, and we have to work collaboratively. And we have to put any angst, and as I say, everyone's free to come up and talk and say what they'd like, but I think this council and the board wants to do it in a spirit of cooperation and in a positive way. You might agree to disagree, but we don't have to cast aspersions. I think it's important, to your point, Mike, those issues you raised are great. The MPR, which is what we have to fund education at. From last year, we can't go below it. The ECS, the education cost sharing, what are the real rules and parameters for that? There's misconception, and a lot of it's innocent. People are frustrated, and they don't get all of the information. But let's do our best to get it out there to them, and I think we can do great things. So I think that's it for my report. Other questions, Mr. Roadman? I'll have to get back to you on those and follow up. And if you have any questions, I'm available. The PAR is out. There's a lot of good information in it. And Mr. Mayor, through you, Mr. Santinella has a question.
Sure.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate you guys doing that exercise on the school modernization and what that would cost. So if we bond, there is the part of it is reimbursable, right? Which is the benefit of us doing the bonding. Did you, by chance, look at what the pay-as-you-go part would be for the unbonded, the unreimbursable part? Because that is for the whole project, right?
Yes.
And so what would it look like? Could we do that same exercise for the unreimbursable part? So we, instead of, school number 1, we're going to get 70% back.
Right.
What's the 30%? And then what is that over a period of time?
And they did incorporate some of it, and I wanted to finish my budget, and I tasked them with that on top of it.
Yeah.
So we'll fine tune it and address that.
I think that's just such a helpful tool to be able to look at that scary project that is kind of a real important thing for us. And I really appreciate
it is
the
scary,
effort that you put
and I
into
understand as
doing it.
elected officials the position it puts you in, but we have to look at it. And if we do it together and with the Board of Ed, it isn't so scary because we come up with a plan. And we start it one step at a time, Counselor, and we move forward. But you've said it in the past, and I said, let me just start to look at that with the budget in regard to and there's really 3 options that the school has put forth that we can look at too, but I don't think there's any problem we can't solve together.
Yeah, I really, really appreciate that exercise because I think it's valuable. So thank you so much for indulging me.
Thank you for giving me a little prods over the years to get to it. Thank you.
Chris, I believe for Wednesday night, we're going to need an executive session. And then after that, it'll be a Board of Education presentation of the budget.
5:30.
And then the remainder of the time will be questions and answers from the council to the board and so on and so forth. Because I know they have different ideas.
Yep.
Because remember, the budget came from Chris Drezek.
Correct.
And I know a lot of the board members have been working on this themselves, so they have a lot of new ideas they want to share. And I know council members have a lot of ideas they want to share and certain things they want to see. I know Mr. Young and some other people in the public, there's certain things that they think the budget is missing that they need to get a better handle on what the board's budget is. So to George and the other people, if you can get us your questions for Wednesday night, we'd be happy to ask the board to try to supply us with those numbers that you're missing to help you get a better idea of where we stand. But I think we focus on that and that only. They are 60+% of the town's budget, and I think they deserve a meeting all in themselves and us the opportunity to discuss it back with them. So
I think it
you
will be
guys are all
very,
good
very
with that?
productive.
I think that's, okay. So that's what we'll do. What's that? What? All right, thank you. Okay, moving on to the town attorney's report.
I have very little to report tonight, other than to say that to follow up on Councilman Hendrickson's announcement about the siting council, is that the town attorney's office has been working together to put together some things that are more appropriately discussed in private and executive session. So we're going to request that that be included on executive session Wednesday, so that we can fully inform the council as to what we've learned and what we think the direction is to go from there. And the only other thing I want to comment on is when Chris was talking about the MOU, that we didn't ask the attorney to draft something like the Gettysburg Address. Actually, the Gettysburg Address, it only took Lincoln 2 minutes to say. It was only 272 words long. So, but on the other hand, he might have been referring to a guy named Edward Everett, who spoke for 2 hours at the same event. That perhaps is what
I take more after the second one, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. You beat me to it because I was going to say it. All set, Tom?
All set, unless somebody has a question.
Any questions for the town attorney?
Okay, thank you very
Seeing
much.
none. Thank you, Tom. All right, moving on. Reports of special committees of the council. Seeing none. Oh, sorry. Councilman Hendrickson.
Sorry, I just want to announce that Friday at 8:15, governance will be meeting to discuss the farmers' 3 options for and hopefully coming up with an ordinance. I believe Mr. Wilcox will have some numbers for us also before we go forward on that. But Friday at 8:15.
In the morning? Oof, good thing I'm not on that committee.
Well, yes, and we have food, too.
Oh, that's right. I said I'm not coming. All right. Thank you, Bob. Unfinished business, we have none this evening. New business, the consent agenda. Resolution authorizing the town manager to sign historic documents preservation grant application with the Connecticut State Library. And then the resolution endorsing the town's fair housing policy statement, and the resolution authorizing the town manager to sign the Connecticut Office of Early Childhood application for continuing funding for the fiscal year 25 school readiness grant. Any questions on any of them? Seeing none. All in favor of the consent agenda?
Well, I think someone seconded it? I did. Oh, you did, okay, yep, sorry.
All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? It's unanimous. Appointments, Town Council, there are none this evening. Resolution waiving bids for sludge disposal services at the Enfield Water Pollution Control Facility. And to address this evening, we have Donald Nunes. Welcome this evening, Mr. Nunes.
Good evening, Mayor, Councilors. Donald Nunes, Director of Public Works. The WPCF Superintendent Todd Mathewson and his admin, Jennifer McKenzie, did some research just to help kind of clear up the picture of what the state of sludge is in New England. So the one sludge plant in Manchester, New Hampshire is closed. Rhode Island, Woonsocket has no capacity. Cranston only accepts liquid only, which means we'd have to change our entire process over and haul by tankers, and that's a whole sort of different process in itself. In Massachusetts, Brockton has no capacity. Fall River is closed. Fitchburg is closed. Lynn is closed. Upper Blackstone, which is in Millbury, is a maybe, and that is 51 miles one direction. In Connecticut, West Haven, no capacity. Waterbury, no capacity. New Haven, no capacity. Naugatuck, no capacity. Mattabesset is liquid only. So that leaves the MDC, which I'm asking for today, or Woonsocket, but again, that'll be a complete change with driving hour and a half each direction and coming back. So it'll be a change in the way we do things and operationally. So for sludge processing, there isn't really anything out there except for the MDC, which has been a very decent partner, and they've been very good to us from a sludge point of view. So,
Thank you. Questions? Councilman Hendricks.
Mr. Mayor,
one
point of
question.
order. Mr. Mayor,
Just one
I'm sorry,
question,
You have to
Donald.
read the resolution. Sorry.
Recommendation, the Enfield Town Council approve the following resolution. Be it resolved that in accordance with Chapter 5, Section 8D of the Enfield Town Charter, the Enfield Town Council does hereby determine that it is against the best interest of the town to require competitive bidding for sludge disposal services at the Enfield Water Pollution Control Facility. Date prepared for 8/24, prepared by Donald T. Nunes, Director of Public Works. Okay. Councilman Hendrickson.
All right, Donald. One question, is this a one-year extension? Or
Yes.
It's a one-year extension?
that's all they'll grant, that's all that they'll engage with right now, because the capacities that they have, some towns drop off, some add a little more, so that's what they can give us for this year. Then it's revisited every spring when we send out the request letter to MDC every spring. So that's what it's reviewed every spring by them and also by us.
All right, that answers my follow-ups, because I see the big increase, and I was wondering, like USA, where we extended it for 5 years, if it was something we could do to save money.
Yeah, they're on 100%. They're on a year-by-year basis.
All right, thank you.
Councilman Ludwig.
So just to follow, so do we, I hate to say this, so do we have just say, I'm not suggesting that it doesn't happen, but what if we don't have a contract with them? Is it Woonsocket is our
No,
contingency?
that's what we're trying to engage Upper Blackstone.
actually
It's called
trying to do
Upper
some other-
Blackstone Clean Water Plant. So
All right, so we're at least developing a contingency in case, unfortunately.
Right,
Not there this year, but in future years.
there's no sign right now the MDC is going away, which is a good thing. But again, there are without that. And the other thing too is if we decided to haul, the nearest area is in Coventry, Vermont, which is 225 miles away.
Right, and I appreciate you doing that, because if people need to understand the perspective that there isn't a lot for us to do here. I mean, by what you said about what cities or towns, unfortunately, the options are, unfortunately.
Yep. So we do have one contingency that we're looking
I
into.
appreciate that,
Yep.
good, though, thank you.
Okay. So I just have one question. So the other company that you were talking about that you said we'd have to do a change of the way we do things, is that the one that's 200 miles away?
No, it would be changing it from 25% cake to less than 8%. So it's basically just little thickened sludge. So we would have to change the way we have to change out the presses. We'd have to buy, either have a company come in and haul the tankers full, they're like gasoline-sized tankers full of that sludge. They would have to do that. So it's a complete wholesale change of operations in the plant. Plus trucking. That's a whole different area.
So it's more of a liquid.
Yes, it's only 8% solids. The rest is 92% is water.
8% solid.
Right. So we're hauling right now 25% solids, and that's how it's burnt and incinerated.
That's all I
Excuse me,
need.
Mayor. It's Play-Doh going to milkshake.
Is it a chocolate milkshake?
I think we should move the question.
All right, all in favor?
You guys got to. You have to vote, Mayor.
Roll call, please.
Counselor Santinella?
4.
Counselor Ungary? 4. Counselor Sakala? 4. Counselor Crisati?
4.
Counselor Finger?
Yes.
Counselor Hendrickson?
4.
Counselor Ludwig?
4.
Counselor Mangini?
4.
Counselor Nasuda?
4.
Mayor Nelson?
4.
Deputy Mayor Pisner? 4. 11 in favor, none against.
Thank you, Donald.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Thank you.
Okay, a request to appropriate additional funds for uniform Relocation Act. Be it resolved that in accordance with Chapter 6, Section 8F of the Town Charter, the following transfer is hereby made from general fund revenues appropriated fund balance, $50,000, to general fund non-departmental expenditures transfer out and contingencies, $50,000. From Social Services Fund Care Coordination, general fund transfers in $50,000 to Social Services Fund Care Coordination miscellaneous expenditures, $50,000. Date prepared 4/10/24, prepared by Cynthia Guerreri, Director of Social Services.
So moved.
Motion is made and seconded. Welcome, Cindy.
Hello.
Mr. Mayor, before Cindy commences, I think a couple meetings ago, we transferred money to replenish this fund, and now, due to events that Cindy will describe, we have to go back and replenish it with $50,000. It's a federal mandate, passed through to the states, passed through the towns, unfunded. And it's growing. So it's a challenge. But beyond that, out of leadership, we discussed it, and we're referring to the town attorney a couple of questions about our right to subrogate against a landlord or an insurance company once they've made these payments. We have to do it, obviously. You can't let people be in the cold and wait to try to collect the money from the landlord or the tenant or the insurance company. So we do it in the emergency basis for an act of God or a fire. But the town attorney will be looking into the fact, how can we recoup and go after responsible parties, if possible, to try to offset some of this money. Cindy?
Okay, so since July of 23 through today, we've spent $52,112. There's been 5 fires. One of them they declined URA assistance. They said they would handle it themselves. Out of the 4 fires, there were 6 to 7 units. We had another situation of a burst pipe that made the apartment uninhabitable. So we are required to handle temporary housing. The first thing we process with people is, who are your natural supports? Do you have family? Do you have friends? Where can you go stay? What are your means for covering your cost? If they can't meet those needs, we then help them with temporary housing. We have 2 of the units still hoteled from the beginning of March fire at South Street, I believe. We actually just got notified that this week we may likely have 3 more units to temporarily house because of unsafe housing conditions. So URA kicks in when either building, health, or fire deems a place uninhabitable or unsafe. And did I say health department? Yeah, building, health, and fire. So this year has been a lot more than, I've been here 4.5 years. Every year we have 20,000 budgeted. The closest we came was 12,000 in a year. This year is a busy, difficult year. We're also going to be bumping up against the realities that some people have been renting in places that are below market. And when they are out because they need to be for safety, security reasons, some of them are not being allowed back in. And then they have to find apartments at higher rents than they can afford. So we're actually starting to work with people that are now going to become homeless. And so while the town is not responsible to pay for somebody to become permanently housed, we are responsible to assist them. So we're assisting as best we can with the sheltering system. So that's kind of the world that we're in right now.
So my first question is, when Ellen was here, is when we had to make the first transfer. Or no, I'm sorry, we were dealing with a fire where they wrecked a hotel.
It was a single-family home, but rented. There was some damage at the hotel that they had to incur.
And there was a cap on what the town was legally responsible to pay.
For permanent relocation, not for temporary relocation.
Okay. So I am dead set against this. It is a unfunded mandate, 100%, and it's time to hold slumlords responsible, okay? If a pipe bursts in an apartment, there is no way this should fall on taxpayers to bail out the landlords. I know when we owned apartments, I had insurance to cover loss of use, loss of rents, and the insurance would pay to put these people up. You know, so we're going to reward the landlord by getting out a tenant who's paying less than market rate, and he just says, okay, I'm not going to fix the heat. They leave, we have to foot the bill for it, and then they don't let them back in? The whole thing doesn't sound right, and it just doesn't sit right with me at all. And as soon as we can get a legal opinion on it, I would appreciate it, because I think this is being taken advantage of now. And, you know, why are we reaching out to people to offer this? They should come to us as a last resort. If you came to me and said, you know, instead of staying with your daughter, not that you're saying this, you could stay in this hotel for the next 6 months. I'm staying in the hotel. I love you, my daughters, but I'm staying in the hotel. Okay? So this doesn't sit well with me. I know it's an unfunded mandate, and I have no choice to pass it. Actually, I do have a choice, and I'm probably not going to pass it, because it's time to start pushing back on stuff like this. I mean, we're picking up the tab for these people to live in apartments now, and these landlords, slumlords, get the free pass. I'm not okay with it. An act of God.
We do liens on the properties, but sometimes that's not enough to persuade people.
Right. Councilman Ludwig.
That was where I was going. You made a comment that it was unsafe conditions now. What does that mean? So what I mean by that is, so I clearly understand a fire, natural. What does that mean beyond an act of God, or, you know, something? What does that? Could you be specific?
So the one that is potential for this week, there's unsafe electrical, a ceiling caving in because repairs just haven't been made.
So how do we? So we have a blight ordinance. How are we? So you mentioned liens. How's it getting to a point if it's that unsafe that I'm assuming hopefully we have liens on them, and then can't we start the foreclosure process, especially if they're not going to let the tenants back into the apartment?
Mm-hmm.
That's I certainly agree with the mayor on this, but I think that's where, for me, I get why we have to do this. But you're right, if it's to a point in a property when it's that unsafe, how have we not slapped it with lien, you know, with blight, as we, you know, and then, okay, they're not doing what they're supposed to, then we hit it with foreclosure, so they don't get to keep their property if they're kicking people out, and then the town is funding the, which, that's okay, but then you shouldn't be able to keep your property and then go rent to somebody else and have the same thing happen, right?
So that wouldn't be in my realm.
Right.
So we do have a troubled properties team, and
Right.
they do meet, and there are a bunch of players involved in
I know, I
those
understand,
situations.
but that's my, that individual shouldn't be able to re-rent to someone after their tenant gets booted out, and now the taxpayers are picking up.
Until they pay us.
Right, exactly. So thank you, appreciate it.
Councilman Santinello.
Thank you. In general, I'm not happy to know that somebody's getting thrown out and living in their car or homeless. So if there's something that we can do, I think we should be somewhat compassionate in those circumstances. But I do have a couple of questions. So maybe this is through the mayor to the town manager and the town attorney. It seems like there's maybe some deficiencies in our ordinances. Say, in a case of a fire, can we require multi-unit homeowners to provide us evidence that they have insurance for this kind of thing? Can we do that? Is that within the realm of our ability? Can we, to Councilor Ludwig's point, can we have an ordinance in place that if we have to relocate somebody because the landlord is not keeping up their property, can we put a lien? It's not blight, because blight's really the exterior of the house, because we're actually redoing that, but there's nothing that covers the interior or remotely touches this circumstance. Mm-hmm. But if there's an ordinance change that we could, if we're bearing the cost, I'm assuming also that we have, this is for either the town attorney or the town manager, I'm assuming we have the right to recover any insurance that would be reimbursing these folks. Is that part of the deal? If some, like, how do we get a
I
first?
really can't speak to,
That's okay.
outside
If you
of our
can't answer,
realm,
that's fine.
My best understanding is the best that we can do is lien the property to try to recoup the expenses that the town has put out.
Right, but if there's,
I don't know if
so
you
that's
can
against
get
the
it from the
landlord, but
insurance company
if the
that-
landlord has that insurance and they're getting money for that, that circumstance,
So when
shouldn't
people
we be able
have
to recover
insurance,
that?
one of our situations that we just dealt with, they stopped paying their insurance.
Right. Well,
So
again, then we move to the lien
There's no
position.
one resolution because there's so many variables with every situation. So some instances, the people that said no thank you to URA, they said they would use their insurance to handle things. Others are, oh, we stopped paying our insurance. So it's always
Understood.
different.
Okay, and I don't expect an answer tonight, but if.
We'll run those to ground,
just-
these questions.
That would be great. I'd appreciate that, because I think this really shouldn't fall on all
No, you're right. And
taxpayers.
I think when there's one or two, you just let it go. But now that's becoming, a repeat and larger and bigger and bigger. And I know the Troubled Properties has looked at it, but she's right. There's insurance. There's not. It lapsed. It didn't. So we need to refocus our efforts on it and get the answers to these questions to try to recoup what we can, while still having compassion for those who are in short-term need.
I know,
And if I
John,
could
on
just
my
add-
policy, they were two separate riders. One was loss of rent, where I would get paid, and the other one was loss of use, where they would put up the tenants temporarily, say if the house burnt, so my insurance company would cover the whole thing.
Right.
So,
I mean, it
but I had to
exists.
pay extra for all this stuff, so.
It exists, and I don't even know if that's available on the town side, if we could get insurance for that for
property we don't own?
Something, it's not for the property, it's for the people that live here. Again, you can get insurance for anything. How much it costs, I don't know, and I'm not suggesting, but if we're continuously refunding or having to fund these things, and insurance is a possibility, it may be worth looking into that as an option.
And John's listening, so we'll talk to our insurance reps and ask that question as well.
And just the only thing I would ask also is if you put those, the questions in an email or something which make it a lot easier for me to take a look at, send them through the town manager, and then we'll be happy to
We'll do
look
it in
up.
this circumstance. Steve's written them down. I'll send it out with a copy. If I've missed anything, let me know.
Just to be clear, you don't need an email from me, you have it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Pisner.
I was basically going to say what John was going to say. I'm not trying to steal your thunder, but having worked in insurance for 20-plus years, I think every landlord should mandate that a tenant has insurance. It's $250 a year, and it would put you a renter's policy. So again, it falls on the tenant, but it's falling on taxpayers with the unfunded mandates. So I just find it very frustrating that when the people do get back on their feet, they aren't willing to give back something that they took. But unfortunately, that's out of your hands. So it is what it is.
Councilman Mangini.
Thank you. I'm going to take an opposite position here. I definitely am going to support this resolution. We are talking about events that no one has any control over. I understand the impact on our municipality and on the taxpayers, but the bottom line is we need to provide assistance to those individuals. License claims adjuster, I handled numerous subrogation claims, and quite honestly, there's no subrogation money coming back to the town, period. That's just my experience as a subro specialist for 20 years. But again, we're getting into the weeds, and what you're looking for is just to comply with the law. So I will honor that. Thank you.
Councilman Cristati.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just listening to everybody, everybody's concerns are very important, and I hear what everybody's saying, but I think in this type of situation here, this is an emergency type situation. And, if the property owner cannot live up to their responsibilities. I believe that these people get fined, the property owners. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I believe that, they should be, if somebody has electrical problems and they can't fix that for their tenant, they should be fined. And that's the people that we should be going after. And unfortunately, this is temporary relocation that we're looking at. We're looking at, a couple of these fires that we've had. This is what we're dealing with. And unfortunately, there are families out there that don't have supportive families, and they're in a bind. So we do have to help them out. So, I mean, we're not looking at, putting them up somewhere for, because they didn't pay their rent. They're there because there's a unfortunate circumstance that happened, that the landlord or the property owner was neglectful to their tenant. So I'm going to be supportive of this due to the fact that, I don't think people are taking advantage of the situation. They're in an emergency situation, and, the town does have an obligation to help them out. So that's where I stand. But, for a property owner not to fix any sort of deficiency that they have within their unit, that's on them, and they should be fined through the Board of Health.
All
So
set,
thank
Bob?
you. Yeah.
Okay. Good. For what? No. What do you want to, I mean, you can. Well, I think, I mean, everybody's right. Bob is right. And unfortunately, the landlords are the ones who are taking advantage of this, not the tenants. And I want to be very clear about that, okay? I feel for the people who are put out, but when I owned all the properties in Thompsonville, I had to keep my properties up. Otherwise, I was responsible to rehouse them somewhere. So now how it all of a sudden got shifted over to the town, because that was your biggest fear. I'm not going to put a tenant up in a hotel for, 2 months to fix it. So I agree with what you're saying, Bob, but I think that the landlords are getting a little, especially if they're not letting the tenant back in, which I don't know how that's possible, because you can't legally lock a tenant out unless you evict them. So I think we need some legal opinion on this. And again, I'm not into the unfunded mandates, and I'm kind of getting tired of getting pushed around, and it just keeps costing us. So, I mean, unless somebody wants to table it for the information, I'm ready to vote. Okay, seeing none. Roll call, please.
Counselor Santinella?
For.
Counselor Ungary?
Against.
Counselor Sikala?
For.
Counselor Crisati?
For.
Counselor Finger?
Against.
Counselor Hendrickson?
Against.
Counselor Ludwig?
Against.
Counselor Mangini?
For.
Counselor Nasuda?
Against.
Mayor Nelson?
Against.
Deputy Mayor Pisner?
Against.
That's 4 in favor, 7 against.
Well, we'll get some question or answered by the town attorney, and then he can advise you as to what the penalties are for not funding these relocations, because it could be a violation of state and federal law. So
If it's a violation of state and federal law, then she shouldn't have to come here and ask us for the money.
Well,
and it's time we start pushing back, Chris, including the Board of Ed.
That's fine, but he should tell you what the penalties are for doing it, and I don't know what they are, but I bet, knowing the federal government and the state government, it's pretty severe. And I don't want to predict, but in some of these matters, you should have tabled it, because I don't want you to be personally responsible for this under the law. And I defer to the town attorney, but I'm sure with these federal and state mandates, there are teeth for not providing this coverage. Now, I don't think we're at the precipice of a cliff, because we can always put it back in at the next meeting and we can fund it. But I'll have to defer to Cindy as to, when these things need to be.
We have people hotels now that we have to pay.
So you don't have money to pay the bill, and I guess we'll get sued. But we'll just find out from the federal government. This is why, folks, though, we bring this up in leadership. So some of these, you asked me to get these answers from the town attorney, and I told you we would. But that's what we should try to determine before we take a vote like this, because there could be repercussions. So we'll find out. We have a special meeting Wednesday night, and if there are serious penalties or repercussions, we can put it back on then and find out, and then try to address it in the long term. I understand your frustration. Do you think I have enjoyment saying 20 grand, 50 grand, I'm doing the budget, and I know that people are at risk and we need to help them, but I think we should do it in a little different fashion. But we have time. The sky isn't falling, but it could.
So when it comes back, I would appreciate if we had the town attorney review the state statute in its entirety, that, this can't be a free pass for landlords. There's got to be some separation, and
I understand.
something's getting crossed here.
I know from Cindy to talk to me different circumstances that they don't all fall in the same category. And, there are strong, whether you do the Department of Health or the building official, he can go in and he can condemn a property, and we've done that, and there are separate penalties for it. This is different, but sometimes it isn't. But it can't be, it just came to our attention Wednesday, and, we're asking the town attorney for an opinion, so we couldn't have all that information tonight. But that's okay. We voted, and we'll look at it, and if it's something imminent, we'll put it back on or ask you to put it on for Wednesday. I don't think it's that imminent. They'll come after us for the money, but if they're already housed, we're going to have a bill to pay, and that's our responsibility, unfortunately. But it's okay.
Sure.
Yeah, okay, sorry, thank you. So are there kids here involved? Do you know?
The current ones, no.
Okay. Not that it makes it any better, but and do you know when this is going to happen? Is there a date?
Actually, I should say that I think one of the units has a school-age child.
Okay, so we have a school-age child now with no place potentially to live. Okay. Maybe if there's something we could do at our next meeting. Thank you. I appreciate it if we can revisit. Thank you so much.
So tonight I go home. I have a pipe that bursts in my basement. I'm calling Cindy to put me up in a hotel because it doesn't cost me anything. It just doesn't sit right.
We can bring the building and other officials. I'm not prepared to answer every one of these scenarios tonight. It's she comes forward. We have the troubled property. They all look at these. We try to proceed against people whenever we can. We've taken the vote. As I say, it's not irrevocable. If we need to do it and revisit it, we can do it as soon as Wednesday or the first meeting in May. And if these people are housed, they're in hotels, then it's just a matter of we're not paying our bill until we address it. So it's not the end of the world. But again, I would just, my position. We take it up in leadership. When the questions come up, we try to get them answered before the meeting. This one is kind of like an octopus because every single scenario is different. And you're right. It is the villains mostly here, other than acts of nature and whatnot, are the landlords, for properties, deficient, and that's the reason we put people out. But unfortunately, federal law, from what Cindy's looked at so far and talked to the town attorneys before, we have this obligation, despite the fact we don't like it. So town attorney will have to look at this tomorrow, make it his number one priority and mark, because we need to know if we need to put it on the agenda for tomorrow night. But I understand your frustration. And you're sending a message by your vote. It isn't the end of the world. We'll look at it, and I understand everybody's position.
Well, maybe
on this.
we're not. We're about to find out.
No, I don't think it's the Titanic.
All right. Okay, thank you, Cindy. Resolution authorizing the town manager to sign and submit a grant application to the State of Connecticut Division of Emergency Management and Homeland Security.
We'll ask the chief to come up. We do this every year, but since he's on for the next 3, this is through Steve Hall, who we give a stipend to for being the emergency management director. And then there's other things that there's pass-through from the state that we use, and we file it every year. I think the last meeting you designated me to be the one to sign the grant, and so I don't think there's anything unique about this, correct, Chief?
There is not. This is part of the Steve Hall compensation package, and a portion of it runs to the town.
Right.
All right. Be it resolved that the Enfield Town Council does hereby authorize the town manager, Christopher Bromson, is authorized to sign and submit the grant application in the name and on behalf of the town of Enfield with the State of Connecticut Division of Emergency Management and Homeland Security, and to affix the corporate seal, date prepared 4/15/2024, prepared by Stephen Hall, Emergency Management Director. Welcome, Chief.
So moved.
Motion's made and seconded. Are there questions?
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. I guess at this point, with no questions, roll call. Good job, Chief.
Counselor Santinella?
4.
Counselor Ungary? 4. Counselor Sakala? 4. Counselor Crisati?
4.
Counselor Finger?
4.
Counselor Hendrickson?
4.
Counselor Ludwig?
4.
Counselor Mangini? Oh, she left the room. Counselor Nasuda?
4.
Mayor Nelson?
4.
Deputy Mayor Pisner? 4. 10 in favor, none against.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, moving on. The reinstatement of a second captain position within the Enfield Police Department at the school safety officer, as the school safety officer program supervisor. The annual cost for this position is $128,083 in salary, plus an additional $50,460 in fringe benefits funding, town cafeteria plan, HSA contribution, medical insurance, dental insurance, disability insurance, life insurance, AD&D insurance, Medicare, and uniform allowance, totaling $178,543. This impact will occur as of the next fiscal year. The recommendation is the council approve the following resolution. Be it resolved that the Enfield Town Council does hereby approve the above second captain position within the Enfield Police Department, date prepared 4/10/24, prepared by Chief Arlick J. Fox, Enfield Police Department.
So moved.
Motion's made and seconded. Welcome, Chief.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Any questions on this one? Would you like to give a little explanation, Chief, about the salary and how we're promoting up, and part of this salary's within the budget for the guards? I'll let you take it.
I'd be happy to. Ladies and gentlemen, at an earlier on point when we were talking about the SSO program, there was some discussion about the hiring, the retention of a civilian supervisor, and that was costed out for you on the low end at a potential 30 hours a week without fringe benefits. And I have these numbers, and we can talk about them, and we can compare the delta if you'd like to go into that degree of detail. At a meeting on April 5th that the mayor referred to earlier, the joint meeting of the Board of Ed and the Town Council, the security meeting, and obviously it was an executive session, so I'm going to be circumspect. There was healthy discussion about whether or not the town wished to continue to proceed down that road, and there were some strong opinions. Eventually, the idea was proffered and well received within that group to try to kill two birds with one stone, if you will, to refund and recreate the second captain's position akin to the way the department used to operate when Captain Fred Hall supervised the program, and that occupied 50, 60, 70, 80% of his time, and the balance of his time he was the second captain within the agency. That idea was attractive to the group that was gathered on April 5th, and I was certainly happy with this idea. It does cause the ripple up, if you will. It does cause a series of upward promotions as a lieutenant becomes a captain, all the way down to a new officer at the beginning of the discussion. The cost out is higher because, frankly, a captain costs more because you're getting more than you'd be getting if you hired a civilian, part-time or full-time, with no benefits, school supervising officer. So I was very pleased at the end of that meeting, and subsequently very pleased to take instructions from Mr. Bromson to prepare the resolution for you, and obviously with that cost out for you, so you understood exactly what we were looking at as we contemplate this position and that number. Thank you.
So just to be clear, our current count is 100 officers, 100 sworn officers?
We are slotted for 100 sworn, yes, sir.
So by approving this tonight, now we're 101 sworn officers. Okay, when the program was in effect, when we created it years ago, it was created with 2 captains in the police department. We say we want to implement the same program, and without getting into too much details of what happened in the security meeting, it was pretty unanimous coming out of there that this was the way to do it. It also puts another police officer on the street, and this officer can fill in for other duties when he's not working on school security. So it kind of kills 2 birds with 1 stone. And I'm all about, everybody knows, police officers and not SSOs. So this is a step in the right direction. So I'm in full favor of this. And any other questions? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Santinella?
4.
Counselor Ungary? 4. Counselor Sakala?
4.
Counselor Crisati?
4.
Counselor Finger?
So, 4.
Counselor Hendrickson?
4.
Counselor Ludwig?
4.
Counselor Mangini?
4.
Counselor Nasuda?
4.
Mayor Nelson?
4.
And Deputy Mayor Pisner?
4.
11 members in favor, none against.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Moving on, resolution waiving the bid requirements for the purchase of 28 Glock pistols for the school security or school safety officer program. There will be no budget impact as a result of this bid waiver request. Recommendation, it is recommended that the town council approve the following resolution, whereas the town of Enfield has recently elected to implement a school safety officer program in conjunction with the beginning of the next academic year. Whereas such a program requires the acquisition of 28 pistols for issuance to the anticipated cadre of school safety officers. Whereas sworn members of the Enfield Police Department currently carry Glock firearms, the department's training program is centered on the Glock pistol, and department firearms instructors have received advanced training with this weapon. Whereas Glock pricing is standardized amongst its vendors, and the quoted amount of $23,410.24 represents the price that the town would pay regardless of the selected vendor. Whereas the department had utilized Paro's Gun Shop and Police Supply of Waterbury, Vermont previously, and our transactions with them have been positive in nature. Whereas Paro's has represented that despite ongoing supply chain issues, these firearms can be provided to the department in advance of the commencement of the next academic year. Now therefore be it resolved that in accordance with Chapter 5, Section 8, Paragraph D of the Enfield Town Charter, the Enfield Town Council does hereby determine that it is against the best interest of the town to require competitive bidding for the purchase of the pistols. Date prepared 4/10/24, prepared by Chief Arlick J. Fox, Enfield Police Department.
So moved. Second.
Okay. So you and I had a discussion about this a couple months ago.
We did, sir.
And if you could just give a quick update on that discussion for the people listening.
Glock at its core is an Austrian company. The factory that makes these guns is in Georgia. They're in the United States. Glock sells firearms for law enforcement agencies and law enforcement officers through a Glock authorized vendor. In the Northeast, there are 3 authorized vendors. The prices are set by Glock, so regardless of what vendor we're going through, we're going to get the same price. We've had a very positive relationship with Peros for our prior purchases and our prior acquisitions from them. What this is not, if you will, with all appropriate respect to all of the individual federal firearms licensees, the federal firearms dealers that are out there, this is not a matter of I pick up the phone and find someone who's a federal firearms licensee and say to that person, can you get me 28 Glocks? We go through the authorized vendor, which gets us the guns quicker, and it gets us the guns at a substantial discount than if we were buying them at retail. The need to get the guns now, the estimate, even at the expedited delivery, is a 4-month turnaround time. So if we were to place this order tomorrow, the guns are coming in the middle of August, which it leaves me about this much wiggle room. To wait any longer to even contemplate trying to do this any other way means we'd be in a situation when the school year began when those guns would not be in. As a result, we proffer this bid waiver for you with the recommendation. It has to go this way. It's not a situation where we can deal with an individual federal firearms licensee.
Chief, can you just address a concern that was raised about why can't we get less and share them among different officers of days of the week that they work?
I'd be happy to. Thank you, sir. These guns are individually sighted to the individual user, just like my pistol is, just like the deputy chief's pistol is. The sights are adjustable, both the iron sights and the red dot optics. So the way that you see, and the glasses that I wear versus the glasses you wear, the glasses that you wear, are not uniform across an individual. This is not an old-style post and circle like we'd see in an old-timey Western movie. These guns need to be calibrated to the individual officer that gun is going to be assigned to. They're going to take the gun at the beginning of the shift. They're going to leave it at the PD when they're off duty. They're going to come back and get it at the beginning of the next shift. It's not a situation where anybody can just take a gun off the rack and carry it. It certainly is not a situation where people can just bring their own personal gun into work and carry it as an SSO. That makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up. These have to be individually sighted. We're not going out and plinking at tin cans. It is my hope, it is my sincere hope, it is your sincere hope that we never, ever, ever have to contemplate the worst. But if it happens, I can't be shooting Councilor Finger's gun any more than Councilor Santinella can be shooting my gun. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And then my last question, Chief, would be, what happened to all the guns and equipment when the program was terminated several years ago?
I believe those guns were traded in by the town prior to my arrival as part of some other firearms purchase. I can tell you that they're no longer in my possession.
Do you have the answer for that, Chris?
No, that's my recollection is that's what's done. And if for some reason this program were to be suspended or there was a change in it, we would do the same thing. Glocks are the high gold standard in the industry, and they always give us a very high trade-in for them. So that's what I'm sure happened to the others. And of course, 10 years ago, the clothing and sweatshirts and T-shirts that was used, I'm sure they.
Well, not the sweatshirts and T-shirts, but the tactical vests, all of it,
Well, those, the chief, they have a certain, how many years, chief, now for a vest? 5. So they would have expired anyway, whatever happened to those. But I'm saying the other equipment would have been of no use to us. It would have been thrown out.
If I may, the loosest analogy that I can give you is when the department switched to this sidearm, and I believe Councilor Ludwig was Mayor Ludwig at the time, that was a CIP upgrade that the council improved. We lessened that cost by trading in the guns that we had at that time that were in our possession that were no longer going to be needed. I can tell you the old SSO guns are not in the armory any longer, and I have every confidence they were not disposed of in any sort of inappropriate way.
Right. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councilman Hendrickson.
Just one, Chief Fox. So
Yes,
if
sir.
it wasn't for the timing, you would be open for a bid?
Sure. It would.
It was
The
just a
bid would
timing
affect.
thing?
Yes, sir. The bid would effectively still be the 3 vendors that are the Glock authorized vendors, and I'm not going to speak out of school, but one of them we haven't found their performance to be satisfactory. So effectively, we would be looking at 2.
And you said Glock sets the price anyways.
Yes, sir.
Right. So it doesn't matter who the vendor is. Councilman Ludwig.
I just want to say, fantastic explanation.
Thank you, sir.
I have to say that was one of the best explanations on any subject we've had.
Thank you.
Fantastic, to the point. I appreciate it. Thank you.
My pleasure.
That's why I had him do it, because he convinced me 2 months ago.
I agree.
So
Great answer.
a lot of people are interested in this contract, and, he did very well last time. So anybody else? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Santinella.
4.
Counselor Ungary. 4. Counselor Sakala. 4. Counselor Crisati.
4.
Counselor Finger.
4.
Counselor Hendrickson.
4.
Counselor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Mangini.
4.
Counselor Nasuda.
4.
Mayor Nelson.
4.
And Deputy Mayor Pisner. 4. 11 in favor, none against.
Okay. Resolution to provide funding for certain equipment purchases for the Enfield Schools Safety Officer Program. Transferring of funding from the appropriated fund balance to school security program in the amount of $194,103. It is recommended that the town council approve the following resolution. I hereby certify that the above stated funds are available as of July 12, 2024 by John A. Wilcox, Director of Finance. Be it resolved that in accordance with Chapter 6, Section 8F of the Town Charter, the following transfer is hereby made. Hereby approve the above transfer of these funds. From general fund revenues, appropriated fund balance, $194,103, to fund balance police services, other equipment, $139,562, and uniforms, $54,541. Date prepared 4/10/2024, prepared by Chief Arlick J. Fox, Enfield Police Department.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any questions? This falls along with the guns. Seeing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Santinella.
4.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Sakala. 4. Counselor Crisati.
4.
Counselor Finger.
4.
Counselor Hendrickson.
4.
Counselor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Mangini.
4.
Counselor Nasuda.
4.
Mayor Nelson.
4.
Deputy Mayor Pisner. 4. 11 in favor, none against.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening.
Okay.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, sir.
Resolution regarding setting a public hearing for the 24-25 budget, whereas the Town Council of Enfield, Connecticut values the opinions and comments of its constituents, and whereas in accordance with Chapter 6, Section 4 of the Enfield Town Charter, any elector or taxpayer may have an opportunity to be heard regarding appropriations for the ensuing fiscal year and for the purpose of being heard on issues of vital community importance and concern. And whereas the Enfield Town Council shall conduct a public hearing at the council chambers, Town Hall, 820 Enfield Street, Monday, April 29th, 2024 at 7 p.m. The Enfield Town Council approve the following recommendation, is the recommendation. Be it resolved that the order of business of the 24-25 budget hearing be arranged as followed. 1, presentation of the town manager's budget. 2, the superintendent of schools highlights the Board of Education budget. 3, comments from members of the public for the first time. Be it further resolved that each speaker be requested to register with the town clerk his or her name and address, and that no speaker be allowed to speak more than 5 minutes each successive time the speaker's name is called. Additionally, any speaker who has not registered with the town clerk will be allowed to speak only after those who have registered no longer wish to speak. Date prepared 4/3/24, prepared by the town manager's office.
So moved.
Motion's made and seconded. Questions? Seeing none, roll call.
Counselor Sakala. Whoops.
4.
Santinella, sorry. Counselor
4.
Santinella. Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Crisati.
4.
Counselor Finger.
4.
Counselor Hendrickson.
4.
Counselor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Mangini.
4.
Counselor Nasuda.
4.
Mayor Nelson.
4.
And Deputy Mayor Pisner.
4.
11 in favor, none against.
Resolution authorizing the town manager to sign a lease agreement with Collins Powder Hill Farm LLC. Recommendation that the Enfield Town or the Town of Enfield, Town Council authorized the town manager to sign a lease agreement with Collins Powder Hill Farm LLC. Be it resolved that the town manager is empowered to enter into the attached lease agreement in the name and on behalf of the Town of Enfield with Collins Powder Hill Farm LLC. Date prepared 4/3/24, date prepared by the town manager's office.
So, second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any questions? Seeing none, just give me 1 second. Do we have anything in this lease about what type of fertilizers and pesticides can be applied to the ground?
Offhand, I don't know. I don't, in a quick scan, see any restrictions. I defer to the town attorney, but I don't see any looking at it.
Right. Now, I'm not worried about PFAS, but what's the next latest and greatest forever chemical? That's what, you
I
know.
suggest you just make it subject to approval by, or review and approval by the town attorney to give us an opportunity to look into that for you.
I'm good with that.
Thank you.
But would you like it added?
Yes.
They can use,
I'll entertain a motion to amend,
I want to make a motion to amend
to add town attorney approval.
to add town attorney approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Huh?
You're amending the resolution, right?
Yeah. What else you gonna amend?
The lease.
We didn't, no, the resolution just says. Okay,
I'm just
I
making
understand.
sure it's clear.
Yes.
Or are you amending the
Yes.
resolution?
Right, just making
That's a
sure
fair
it's
question.
It's very fair, absolutely. Okay, all in favor of the amendment? It's unanimous. Okay, any questions on the amended resolution? Seeing none, roll call.
Counselor Santinella.
4.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Crisati.
4.
Counselor Finger.
4.
Counselor Hendrickson.
4.
Counselor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Mangini.
4.
Counselor Nasuda.
4.
Mayor Nelson.
4.
And Deputy Mayor Pisner.
4.
11 in favor, none against.
Okay, thank you. 14, items for discussion. Anybody? 15, any other business proper to come before said meeting? Councilman Finger.
Thank you, Mayor. So this has been haunting Abbey Road for a while, too, is those sidewalks that were illegally put in. It was a false illegal from what our town attorney stated that the past town manager agreed to have them cleaned by the town, and that didn't happen. So I want, and the only way to get this resolved is because I do like to see the people happy, because they didn't want them. They were put in through the DPW subcommittee and not coming through the council because I didn't have no vote on it. So anything happens in the subcommittees is supposed to come back to the council for a vote. That never happened. So to me, that was illegal. So I would like to make a motion that I'd like to see this put on the next agenda for a vote to remove the sidewalks on Abbey Road that were put in on 20, well, the numbers I think is 40 and 29, 41. But it's right over there, and I think everybody knows where they are. Right off of Taft Lane, right after Taft Lane, going down Abbey Road, on both sides, to remove the sidewalks. Yes, thank you. That's what I thought I said.
Second that to go on the agenda.
we'll add it.
Thank you.
Okay. Public communications, who would like to come up and speak to the council? Mr. Young, come on down. Everybody left.
George Young, 8 Holly Lane. I'd just like to ask the through the mayor to the town manager, maybe the finance department. When would we see the fiscal 2023 year-end financial report audited? Someday? Maybe I can get an up-to-date answer. So, John?
You know we can't do the
That's
back
it.
and forth.
Yeah.
They heard you, so.
We'll reach out tomorrow, Mr. Young.
All set, George? Yeah. I say, okay, come on up, Zach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Two things. First and foremost, one of the questions in regards to the grant for housing relocation or the money being moved, I think it would be helpful if coming into budget, if we could get a list line item within social services of what is required we fund by federal grant and what do we elect to do. So oftentimes when I look at it, I see a list of programs that we fund. I don't know which ones we're required to do and which ones we choose to do of our own discretion. So that would be helpful. Number two, I did want to touch on the schools, and I know myself and the mayor last year had a long conversation about what is considered a cut. And I think it's important to look at it from at least the perspective I look at it is it's always been state law we can't reduce the budget. But for instance, and I know people at Enfield like chicken, so I'll use Raising Cane's. So 10 years ago, let's say you buy a chicken combo, it costs $10, and now it costs $20. And let's say I made $10 10 years ago, and now I make $15. It's increased, but the funding hasn't kept up. And the data is pretty specific in regards to the school system is, yes, we've added millions of dollars to our budget, but it hasn't kept up with the rate of inflation. And I know the mayor referenced it. This is a very different school district than it was 10 years ago. And the needs of this school district have become very expensive. And we can get into debate about how it got there. And I think it probably could have been avoided, but it's become very expensive. And we have a responsibility to provide the same quality of education that we did 10 years ago that we do today. And that costs money. And if we are not funding our school district at the rate of inflation or exceeding it, we are not providing the same quality of services that we did 10 years ago. So yes, we've added money to the budget, but it has not kept up at the rate of inflation. People have done homework on that. I don't think that's not an opinion, that's a fact. Whether we can argue it's a cut, I guess that would be an opinion. But we have a responsibility to fund schools at the rate of inflation or to exceed it, or you're not improving the quality of education. And with this district going through a lot of changes demographically, it comes at a cost. And I really believe that unless we fund those changes, it's going to be detrimental to the district. It doesn't look good to prospective home buyers. And the schools are the pinnacle of what decides about why people move to certain communities. I substitute in Summers and Long Meadow. Fundamental reason all the time parents say I moved here for the schools. Enfield tends not to be one of those factors when people move here. And if we want to change that, we have to fund the schools in a way that moves us forward and not just adds money to the budget, but fails to meet our rate of inflation and provide the same quality of services that we did 10 years ago, and recognizing that we fundamentally, as a district, have changed. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Zach. Anyone else? Seeing none? I have one question, or one thing that what Zach had said. I like the numbers for what is mandatory. Unfortunately, the grant we spoke of tonight, you can't put a number on it, because what if nobody applies, the number's zero? What if 500 people apply? What if landlords start hearing this and say, we got an easy out? It could be 500,000. And that's the problem. How does the state of Connecticut put an unfunded mandate on us like this, and there's no cap? There's nothing that could, it's wide open. That's absurd. So I like what you're saying, but unfortunately that wouldn't work with this particular one. Anyone else? Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.